Be there in a second. I'm just posting because I forgot a few tags. and I just thought I'd do that first, and then I'll be right with you. If you're there watching, if you're a toxic American and you're so patriotic, oh look, there's Ira. I'm going to share screen. I've just started. I've watched the first. Well, I've listened to the first 10 minutes of this. I think I'm going to listen to the rest, and I'm going to make sure that you get to hear it, because I think the guy's right. Even though, I mean, the guy in it is a Muslim, does that mean he can be wrong about everything? Well, I've seen some really toxic Muslims on YouTube. It's awful. And I could never become a Muslim because I would have to lie to myself all day. Or if I became a free gracer or a Roman Catholic, I would still have to lie to myself all day. I'm not doing that. No thanks. Now, I've tagged this channel. I'm going to put a link to this video. I'm going to put it in there, and I'll put some red dots next to it. Might be red. I don't know. I'll go with blue. Yeah, I'll put some blue dots next to it. And there's a link to the video that I'm now going to play. I think he's right about this Charlie Kirk stuff. Basically, I mean, this guy does have some quite strong opinions. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, though. This video is about
feudal misery, illiteracy.
How long is it? Oh, it's only, 30 minutes? Is it 30? Yeah, 32 minutes. Just because he's a Muslim doesn't mean everything he says is wrong. Now, obviously, I don't agree with Islam. Hopefully, that's obvious to you. I know one or two of you clowns will probably accuse me of being whatever. Like, I'm bothered. I know what's true of me, mostly. You don't. So, F off. Don't care whether you like it or not. I'm going to play this. I've tagged it. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you about. I'll tell you that later, as soon as I've finished listening to this.
And hello to millions of Americans all across this land who are gathered in sadness and sorrow.
Yeah, they don't give a toss.
To mourn Charlie Kirk,
but
also to dedicate ourselves to finishing his mission and achieving victory in his name.
Oh yeah. What a presumptuous thing to say.
The day that Charlie died, the angels wept.
Oh,
but those tears have been turned into fire in our hearts.
Oh.
And that fire burns with a righteous fury that our enemies cannot comprehend or understand.
Yeah.
Okay, but pause it.
I mean, really, America is about as righteous as a piece of dog shit in a swimming pool. Europe isn't much better. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and avoid interrupting.
That's a very strange and very fast sort of alchemy, isn't it? From angelic tears to fire and fury.
Oh, yeah.
A fire and fury that your unnamed enemies are not able to comprehend or understand. Well, yeah, sure, we can't. Because unless your enemies are highly skilled psychologists with a particular expertise in psychopaths, then it would be incomprehensible to a normal person. Honestly, it's very strange. But let me just say this, because I know where it's going. I know where he's going with this, obviously. You are transforming shock and grief into a mandate for oppression and violence that will just cause more grief and shock. Look, think about the normal human reaction, okay? The normal human reaction when someone who's close to you, supposedly, dies, much less when you witness their gruesome murder, okay? Someone who was a firebrand, who was a demagogue of extreme rhetoric, an extremely confrontational, hostile personality. I think we can all agree that Charlie Kirk was that. And his life gets extinguished in the blink of an eye, okay? I would think that the normal human reaction is to reflect on our mortality, to reflect upon the monstrosity of violence and hate, and to remind yourself about human vulnerability and human weakness. Don't you think? You think it would make you think about your own inevitable appointment with Allah, your own appointment with God. In my opinion, that would be the normal human reaction. I mean, I know that they said that there are like, what, 5 stages of grief, 5 stages of mourning. And I think that the second stage is supposed to be anger or resentment about the loss. But that's not what this is. This is weaponization. In my opinion, this is an inhumanly cynical and manipulative commandeering of either real or vicarious trauma, specifically to pursue a political agenda. That's not heartfelt, that's heartless. This is mourning as justification. Yeah, go on.
When I see Erica and her strength and her courage, I'm reminded of a famous expression. The storm whispers to the warrior, "You cannot withstand my strength." And the warrior whispers back, "I am the storm."
Okay.
I
Well, first, obviously, that's not actually a famous expression. It's an internet meme. That's like something he saw on Instagram. Unless he's just misquoting Walter White from Breaking Bad, you know, they are the danger, they are the one who knocks. Is that what he's saying? I don't know. Wallahi, this is a deeply unserious generation of people, subhanAllah. I mean, again, look at the language, okay? Storms are destructive, they're chaotic, they're dangerous. And you're saying that you want to outstorm the storm, not calm the storm, not be a shelter or build a shelter from the storm, not to protect people, because you think it sounds cool to say that you're the storm, you know, because you admire and you aspire to be destructive and dangerous and damaging and ferocious. You think that's cool. You think that's power. You think that's leadership, because you have no idea how to lead to, only lead against. Just not hating or not being violent or not being destructive is not an option with you, to just not be those things. The most that anyone can ever hope for from you is just that you redirect your hatred, redirect your destructiveness and your violence in another direction. That's the most we can hope for. I think we'll see shortly which direction that's going to be in his speech, which direction they want to direct their hatred and anger and destructiveness.
We are the storm, and our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion.
Again, this is such an abnormal response.
We are the storm. We are the storm. Isaac thinks he's a storm. Yeah. Oh, Isaac, you are the storm. Yeah. Well, I'm just going to check the audio. Make sure you can hear exactly what I and this other guy is saying. I'm not in perfect agreement with him. But the stuff I've heard of him, from him, right, I would find it difficult to disagree with. The only thing I would disagree with, really, is his adherence to Islam. Yeah. Yes, they are the ones who know. Yeah. I hope that's not Norma Jean, because I'm going to block you if it is. Who is it? Oh, it's you. Okay. Didn't see your comment. I'm just checking my audio, that's all. I'm going to have a quick read. I'm not going to keep stopping my stream just to read comments. Yeah. You're attempting to distance yourself from the community, as it is unnecessary drama, which tends itself to unnecessary and unreasonableness. Is that the whole thing? Hold on. Which tends itself to unnecessary and unreasonable drama, which unnecessarily complicates one's life. It complicates one's life, does it? Well, it's not difficult to distance yourself from it. Just don't be involved or stoke the fires or something. I'm not involved with the Free Grace channel or Isaac or Smokey. I've got no loyalty to any of you because you're a bunch of brats. You're a bunch of bastards. I don't want anything to do with you. And you're not the cornerstone of all of it. If you're attempting to do something, then you're not doing it. You're not succeeding because simply you're attempting to distance yourself from the community. Yeah. It doesn't take much doing to distance yourself from it and put it behind you, which I'm trying to do as well. I'm not, I do get sort of, well, I'm not embroiled anyway, put it that way. I might have my dinner soon anyway. 5 to 9. Anyway, I'm going to play this more. Have a listen. Oh, don't. Suit yourself.
Don't you think? This is abnormal. It's such... Okay? Storms are destructive. They're chaotic. They're dangerous. And you're saying that you want to outstorm the storm, not calm the storm, not be a shelter or build a shelter from the storm, not to protect people, because you think it sounds cool to say that you're the storm.
Yeah.
You know, because you admire and you aspire to be destructive and dangerous and damaging and ferocious. You think that's cool. You think that's power. You think that's leadership, because you have no idea how to lead to, only lead against. Just not hating or not being violent or not being destructive is not an option with you, to just not be those things. The most that anyone can ever hope for from you is just that you redirect your hatred, redirect your destructiveness and your violence in another direction. That's the most we can hope for. I think we'll see shortly which direction that's going to be in his speech, which direction they want to direct their hatred and anger and destructiveness.
We are the storm, and our enemies cannot comprehend our strength, our determination, our resolve, our passion.
Again, this is such an abnormal response, don't you think? This is abnormal. It's such an abnormal posture to take at a memorial ceremony. I mean, it would be abnormal if it was sincere. It would be abnormal. So this is where you have to separate the rhetoric, which is already a bizarre reaction to the killing of a tremendously polarizing figure. I mean, if this was a sincere reaction, that reaction would be, as a sincere reaction, it would be bad enough. But it gets worse, in my opinion, because I think that this is a completely calculated, completely manipulative political hijacking of what that audience would see as a tragic event, which makes the reaction incredibly cold-hearted. It makes it incredibly cold-hearted and pathological. There's literally no actual sentiment, no actual mourning, no actual grief. There's only the recognition that sentiment, that mourning and grief are exist among their followers, and they are useful levers for basically inflaming people. I mean, saying we have this fury, we have this passion, we have this determination. This isn't a description. It's an instruction. You understand me? He's not telling them we are this way. He's telling them to be this way. And he wants them to be that way in order to mobilize their shock and their bewilderment and their sadness into the intensification of the same polarization that caused the event that they are supposedly there to mourn. You understand what I'm saying? It's absolutely vicious. It's psychopathic.
Our lineage and our legacy hails back to Athens, to Rome, to Philadelphia, to Monticello. Our ancestors built the cities. They produced the art and architecture. They built the industry.
There it is. That's what it's about. Your lineage. Evoking that fable of a straight line from Athens to Monticello to Washington, D.C. The fable about Athens and Rome's virtues and their greatness. You know, how wonderful they were. Both Mediterranean empires, by the way. Mediterranean empires that got bleached by that fable. And both of which would have been forgotten to history if the Muslims had not interpreted their works for you. You would have forgotten about them. And when I say their works, bear in mind that a great deal of those works attributed to Athens and Rome were taken from Egypt.
Yeah.
Both of those cities and those empires were built by slaves, just like Philadelphia and Monticello, built by slavery and bloody conquest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Monticello, that's where Thomas Jefferson first started raping 14-year-old Sally Hemings, where his own children from her worked as his slaves. His own children worked as his slaves. I mean, evoking Athens and evoking Rome is obviously right out of the white supremacy. Athens to Monticello to Washington, D.C. The fable about Athens and Rome's
some things I just need to hear again.
Virtues and their greatness, you know, how wonderful they were. Both Mediterranean empires, by the way. Mediterranean empires that got bleached by that fable. And both of which would have been forgotten to history if the Muslims had not interpreted their works for you. You would have forgotten about them.
I'm not sure what precisely he means by that. Anyway.
And when I say their works, bear in mind that a great deal of those works attributed to Athens and Rome were taken from Egypt. Both of those cities and those empires were built by slaves, just like Philadelphia and Monticello, built by slavery and bloody conquest.
Yeah.
I mean, Monticello, that's where Thomas Jefferson first started raping 14-year-old Sally Hemings, where his own children from her worked as his slaves. His own children worked as his slaves. I mean, evoking Athens and evoking Rome is obviously right out of the white supremacist Nazi toolkit. So yes, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear whose actual lineage he's talking about. I mean, the funny thing is, Stephen Miller, that's not his lineage. Not at all. Miller is a Jew from a family that came from, I think, Belarus, from Eastern Europe. He has no connection to Athens. He has no connection to Rome. He has no connection to Philadelphia or Monticello. I think his family came to the U.S. in like the 1930s. No doubt fleeing from people in Europe who talked exactly like he's talking right now.
Stephen Miller is the guy at the beginning of the video. You know, we are the storm. Yeah.
Now,
knob.
You know he wanted to add Berlin to that lineage. You know he did.
Well,
his own children worked as
who partly funded that Austrian painter in Germany. His name, let me just remember his first name. Oh yes, this should ring a bell with you. Prescott Bush. Who funded the, who helped to fund anyway, the Bolshevik Revolution. Oh yes. That's a whole nother story, by the way. But yeah, I'll just put that full screen again. The link's in there.
His slaves. I mean, evoking Athens and evoking Rome is obviously right out of the white supremacist Nazi, and both of which would have been forgotten to history if the Muslims had not interpreted their works for you. You would have forgotten about them. And when I say their works, bear in mind that a great deal of those works attributed to Athens and Rome were taken from Egypt. Both of those cities and those empires were built by slaves, just like Philadelphia and Monticello, built by slavery and bloody conquest. I mean, Monticello, that's where Thomas Jefferson first started raping 14-year-old Sally Hemings,
Oh,
where his own children from her.
oh no, not Thomas Jefferson. Dearie me.
Worked as his slaves. His own children worked as his slaves. I mean, evoking Athens and evoking Rome is obviously right out of the white supremacist Nazi toolkit. So yes, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear whose actual lineage he's talking about. I mean, the funny thing is, Stephen Miller, that's not his lineage, not at all. Miller is a Jew from a family that came from, I think, Belarus, from Eastern Europe. He has no connection to Athens. He has no connection to Rome. He has no connection to Philadelphia or Monticello. I think his family came to the U.S. in like the 1930s. No doubt fleeing from people in Europe who talked exactly like he's talking right now. You know he wanted to add Berlin to that lineage. You know he did. But okay, everyone knows what he's talking about. Everyone knows who he's talking about here. He's talking about white people, so-called Europeans. That's the we, that's the us that he's talking about. Everyone understands that. It's perfectly clear. Which of course means that the enemies that he's talking about are not external but internal. Americans who are so-called minorities, who are immigrants. You know, that's who he's talking about. But also, and everyone needs to understand this too, he is showing you what white means. White here is a political identity. It's a class identity. It's an agenda, not a so-called race. And if you don't share that political identity and that class and that political agenda, then your white skin is not going to save you. I mean, the alleged killer of Charlie Kirk is a white kid from just about the whitest state in America. So no, white here means that you're aligned with the regime. Western means that you're aligned with the regime. Your lineage and your legacy means all those who align with the regime throughout history. And alignment with the regime means total hatred, total hostility against anyone who isn't.
Erica stands on the shoulders of thousands of years of warriors, of women who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization.
Yeah, this guy's an idiot. Stephen Miller. Well, I don't know what you bastards over there in the USA make of Stephen Miller. I wouldn't say that you all agree with him or that you align with him. I think Tony Cato probably does. He's another banker.
Pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light.
Okay.
Out of the dark.
Well, obviously, this is ahistorical. Women and...
I tell you what, I'm going to do a solid and show her comment. How ridiculous. Really? You're trying to distance yourself. Oh, thank you for your valiant effort, Mrs. Smoky Saint. Lo, oh yes. It's all so unnecessary. Because she uses that word a couple of times. It's almost redundant. I'm attempting to distance myself from the community, as it is unnecessary drama which lends itself to unnecessary and unreasonable drama which unnecessarily complicates one's life. Well, I do apologize that your life is complicated and you overuse the word unnecessary, necessarily. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mrs. Smoky Saint, for your wisdom. Yeah. And you know what you can do, and it begins with F, and the last two letters of that phrase ends with 2F. Yes. F off. Oops. I'm trying very hard not to overtalk this, because you can go and watch the whole video yourself later.
Western history and European history were inanimate objects. They were property owned by their fathers, owned by their husbands, and
Yeah.
passed on to their
You
brothers-in-law when their
apologize.
husband died. They were born regime. Your lineage and your legacy means all those who align with the regime throughout history. And alignment with the regime means total hatred, total hostility against anyone who isn't.
Erica stands on the shoulders of
Erica.
thousands of years of warriors, of women who raised up families, raised up city, raised up industry, raised up civilization, who pulled us out of the caves and the darkness into the light.
Oh.
Okay. Well, obviously, this is ahistorical. Women in Western history.
And there are no warriors anywhere that I'm aware of, unless you count bombing a school with 168 young girls in it. Yes, you warriors of America. You rancid bastards.
In European history were inanimate objects. They were property.
Women, yeah.
Owned by their fathers, owned by their husbands, and passed on to their brothers-in-law when their husband died. They were barred from any political role whatsoever. They didn't raise anything up. They were forcibly and relentlessly kept down. No, she isn't standing on anyone's shoulders. Not at all. Your whole so-called civilization is standing on the backs of women. It's standing on the backs of slaves. It's standing on the backs of serfs, of colonized people. It's built on their backs and on their blood and on their bones. Your shining city on the hill is sitting atop a mass grave. I don't know what thousands of years you're even talking about. What are you talking about, thousands of years? Just 1,000 years ago, Europe was an abysmal swamp of disease, of poverty, of feudal misery, illiteracy, filth, and ignorance. That was just 1,000 years ago. What about thousands? No,
the
come
light
on.
will defeat the dark. We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil.
Oh, yes.
They cannot imagine what.
Yes, Stephen Miller, you will overcome the evil and the wickedness, unless it's American evil and wickedness. Yes, you warrior, you. Oh, yeah. Knob.
They have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us.
Oh.
Okay, look, we all know how unhinged this sounds. And we all know what he means by light and who he means by light and what and who he means by dark. Don't be fooled, though. If you're an American, don't be fooled. The evil and the wickedness that he's talking about is you. He's talking about you. You understand me? He's not trying to amp that crowd up so that America can go and bomb another foreign country. No, he's talking about you. He's talking about you and your fellow Americans. He's talking about a force and a tyrannical power that everyone in the world can imagine. Everyone in the world can imagine this force and this power, and they can conceive of it because we have all been victimized by it. You know what that is? That's the brutal, abusive police officer who beats and shoots people in the street, and then he comes home with that same rage and that same violence towards his own wife and his own family. That's what that is. Understand, he's not threatening us. He's threatening you.
Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have?
Yeah, so much for moralistic crusaders like Smoky Saint and Isaac. Isaac is the storm. He is a storm. He's a whirlwind. He had a word of knowledge from God audibly in his ears. Oh, yes. Go ye and white knight for Isaac, Ben, Englishman who says, what was it now? Yes, Adam is a son of Cain. You warrior, Ben, you theological half-wit. Yes. Oh dear. Oh, what Christian ever says that? I mean, really?
You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing.
Yes,
See?
we're all nothing.
He's dehumanizing you.
Yeah. Well, that's what.
Just like you dehumanized us, Muslims, for.
Yeah, Smokey does that. He likes to dehumanize people. So did Tom Dude, Olive. And Isaac is doing the same thing. He's making metaphysical claims about people, and he's not in a position to access that kind of information, whether they're obeying the Lord or not, or whether they are actually in Christ. In fact, you've got to go to, well, in Isaac's mind, you have to go to Isaac's channel to prove that you are a child of God. And yeah, good luck with that.
For the last 20 years. This is George W. Bush's post 9/11 speech, except it's directed at other Americans. You understand me?
Oh dear.
Your only certification as a human being is your complete alignment with the regime now. And part of that alignment means that you have to co-sign. You have to co-sign violence, oppression, brutality, and dehumanization of other Americans. If you imagine that a critic or that a dissenter, if you imagine that they have any human value whatsoever, then you're a traitor. It's treasonous for you to believe in the humanity of anyone who is not on board with dehumanizing your fellow citizens. Do you understand? I told you that Trump's job is to dismantle the United States of America. I told you that. To dismantle and sabotage America, and that's what he's doing. This speech is just building the mandate for a vast and perpetual social annihilation of any rights or any freedom that you might have had to complain about or to oppose your own social annihilation, your economic annihilation, maybe even your physical annihilation and the annihilation of your rights and your freedom. Pay attention to that.
You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal.
Isn't that what I said?
You have immortalized Charlie Kirk.
Isn't that what I said? Okay, again. Actually read through what he's saying here. Produce, create, build. This is class definition, basically. He's talking about the rich. He's talking about investors. He's talking about owners. Because look, historically, all the production, all the creation, and all of the building in the West has been done by slaves and by serfs and by the poor, by the working class.
Yeah.
But credit is only given to the owners of the slaves, the owners of the serfs.
Yeah.
So he's not talking about the people who actually do the work. He's talking about the people who own the workers. Do you understand me?
They've got the money.
They're the ones who produce. They're the ones who create. They're the ones who build. The workers are nothing because they don't own what they produce. They don't own what they create, and they don't own what they build, and therefore they have nothing and they are nothing. So when he says humanity, he means the wealthy. The rest of you are nothing. You're evil. You're wicked. You're envious leeches fomenting resentment against your oppressors who are good, who are virtuous, who are noble. This is a justification. Wallahi, this is another justification for another forever war, American forever war, but an internal one, all for their Lord and Savior, Charlie Kirk.
And now millions will carry on his legacy. And we will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes for which Charlie gave his last measure of devotion. You cannot defeat us. You cannot slow us. You cannot stop us. You cannot deter us. We will carry Charlie and Erica in our heart every single day and fight that much harder.
Okay, again, he's not talking to me. You understand? He's not talking to us, the Muslims. He's talking to you. He's declaring war against you and against every American that doesn't fit his definition of human, i.e. the poor, i.e. so-called black people, brown people, indigenous people, immigrants, dissenters, critics.
People who disagree.
That's what he's talking about.
Because of what you did to us.
Oh, yeah.
You have no idea the dragon you have awakened. You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic.
This civilization, the West, this republic, means rich white people. That's what he's talking about. Fighting against, as always, the most vulnerable, the most defenseless, the most helpless communities. Always. It's always like that. That dragon never wakes up when it gets poked by anyone with power. No, that dragon is very timid when it comes to anyone who can fight back. That dragon can look the other way and turn the other cheek if it's dealing with someone who can fight back. All of that rage and that fury is only ever against defenseless people. That's what it's done for decades, if not centuries, in the global South.
What they're doing with
Now, that dragon always backs down from a fair fight. But when it has disproportionate power, then that dragon gets brave. And now that's you. You're the defenseless. You're the defenseless enemies that it wants to scorch. Because the global South can.
And Isaac, I really think you gave that kind of power to Smokey. You're scared to death of the guy. You daren't disagree. You daren't. And you wouldn't know how to. I've spotted some of Smokey's fallacies myself. I just don't bother exposing them. I did a little bit here and there. Waste of time. Because we're all stupid. We're all lowbrow, aren't we, Mrs. Smokey said? It's all so unnecessary.
Fight back now. It's like I told you before. It's that black bear coming back to its den hungry because there's too many wolves in the forest and it can't find anything to eat. So it comes back home to eat its own cubs. That's what this is. Just like I've been telling you.
Because our children are strong, and our grandchildren will be strong, and our children's children's children will be strong. And what will you leave behind?
Children?
Nothing. Nothing.
Grandchildren?
To our enemies,
children.
you have nothing to give, you have nothing to offer, you have nothing to share, but
What's
bitterness.
up, then? What a turd. Stephen Miller.
Okay, so he's talking about the next 3 generations. Like I said, it's another forever war, but fought domestically against the American people themselves. Oh. He's talking the language of total annihilation and total dehumanization.
No.
And again, he's talking about you. He's not talking about anyone else. He's talking about other Americans.
America is
we have beauty, we have light, we have goodness, we have determination, we have vision, we have strength.
America has Isaac standing up for it. He is the light. It is only this morning that he had a word of knowledge from God in his ear, audibly, apparently. I couldn't find that bit. I have got a transcript, though. I shall look for it. I might bother, I might not. Anyway. Oh, it's all so unnecessary, Mrs. Smokey. Yes, it's all so unnecessarily unnecessary.
We built the world that we inhabit now, generation by generation, and we will defend this world. We will defend goodness. We will defend light. We will defend
anything.
Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and they're going to defend that. That's basically what he's saying. Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and they're going to defend that. Understand, when he's talking, he says the world. When he says the world, he's talking about his penthouse. And he's talking about his bubble of wealth and privilege. That's the goodness and the beauty and the virtue and the light. His wealth and privilege and his class. And he's not going to let anyone take that away from him. That's what he's talking about.
You cannot terrify us. You cannot frighten us. You cannot threaten us. Because we are on the side of goodness. We are on the side of God. And to my friend Charlie, to my brother Charlie, I know you are looking at us right now. I know you're watching Erica right now. I know you're watching your children right now. And I promise you, my friend, I promise you, my brother, we will prove worthy of your sacrifice. We will prove worthy of your time on earth. We will make you proud. We will finish the job. We will defeat the forces of darkness and evil. And we will stand every day for what is true, what is beautiful, what is good. and we will achieve victory for our children, for our families, for our civilization, and for every patriot who stands with us. God bless you.
Okay, so there it is. I told you, their God is another being entirely. He says that they're on the side of God. And that God believes like they believe, which means it's no kind of God. It's a hateful, spiteful, vengeful, cruel, dehumanizing, vicious God that they believe in. So yes, just like the Romans, just like the...
Yeah, America built on Greece and Rome. I mean, if you know anything about Greece and Rome, maybe perhaps, but Greece wasn't as bad, although it did have slavery and things. Based on Greece and Rome, are you kidding? Greasy grace, maybe they mean that, because free graces aren't convicted of sin, and neither is that Stephen Miller, apparently. Yes, we're going to defeat the evils of the world whilst ignoring our own. Sounds like Tony Cato. Yes, he will defend himself against the lies of wicked, naughty men, but not against anybody else. I mean, if somebody lies about what Tony said, as Dude did, and I do have a recording of it, I remember that now. Do apologise for segueing here. Tony will not come to a man's defence and say, no, I did not say that. Yes, Tony Cato, come on down, you massive hypocrite, you two-faced sack of crap. Tony Cato, Tom, Dude, Olive, Isaac, Smokey, and me as well in some ways. I mean, I'm not 100% aware of what my hypocrisies are. I think it's probably to do with the fact that I disagree with Ben. Yes, Ben. Why on earth, Isaac, you trust Ben? I mean, that's up to you. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Ben is a massive creep. He's a brother, but he's a creep of the first order. Creepy Ben.
We will defeat the forces of darkness and evil.
Yes, we will go forth into the night and destroy the forces of evil and wickedness and naughtiness, except what's going on in our own country. Yes. Oh, you holy one, you. Oh, crank.
We will stand every day for what is true, what is beautiful, what is good. And we will achieve victory for our children, for our families, for our civilization, and for every patriot who stands with us.
Oh, yeah.
God bless you.
Okay, so there it is.
Well, I'm not a patriot to USA. Of course I'm not. I'm English. I'm a British guy. I'm a Yorkshireman. And I think my ancestry is Saxon. I'm not sure. Yeah, I've got no... I mean, why would I have any loyalty to the USA? I'm an ex-British soldier. So what? It's very hard for me to even have any kind of loyalty to... I mean, I've got loyalty towards this country. The people of it, I think. Not the government. No. Oh, no. I know too much about the government and its stuff to be that stupid. No way. And Isaac is loyal to Smokey. Smokey has never lied to Isaac. Yes. He's so moral.
I told you, their God is another being entirely.
Yeah.
He says that they're on the side of God.
Oh,
and that God believes like they believe, which means it's no kind of God. It's a hateful, spiteful, vengeful, cruel, dehumanizing, vicious God that they believe in. So yes, just like the Romans, just like the Athenians, just like the slave masters of Philadelphia.
I wonder if Stephen Miller, I might Google it actually, have a look if it's, I mean, that's a problem in itself, isn't it? Is Steve Miller a Calvinist?
Philadelphia and Monticello.
Hmm.
Imagine cynically using the death, the murder of his supposed friend to try to incite division and revenge, to try to threaten and boast and to negate the humanity and the basic human value of everyone who disagrees with his toxic doctrine. All emotions must be channeled into hatred and anger, aggression, intimidation. This is their reflex. It's the reflex of that whole so-called civilization. And always, always against the weak, always against the vulnerable, always against the least of these, right? He's letting you know that you're superfluous. He said you're nothing. He said you are nothing, you have nothing, and you will leave nothing, and they will see to that. Obviously, what he said was meant to provoke. I mean, it's not only meant to provoke his base and Trump's base and Kirk's base, but to provoke everyone else. You understand? The threats and the insults and the intimidation, all of that is meant to provoke you because they want a war. Yes, they want a war. They want a war, and they're going to do it. They're going to do whatever they're going to do anyway, but it will be easier for them if you holler back. You understand? You see, they always want to frame their abuse. They always want to frame their abuse as retribution, as defense, as revenge, as fighting back. That's what makes Charlie Kirk's death so useful for them. Because then they can do everything that they were planning to do anyway. They can do it, but now they can do it under the pretense of fighting back.
Yeah.
You understand? It's the same as what they did with the so-called war on terror.
Oh, yeah.
Just the same thing that Israel is doing right now. It's just like an abusive cop who uses the slightest resistance.
Yeah. America's holy war on terror and drugs, naughty drugs and weed. And they ignore, as I made it clear earlier, their own terrorism. What did the Americans get out of Afghanistan? A whole ton of weed and naughty things, beginning with O, P-I-U-M. Oh, yes, Isaac is grateful for the bowls. Yeah, that's what they brought out of Vietnam, Afghanistan. Control of the drugs. You don't actually think that the American so-called government gives a flying toss about you and anybody else. If you're not making big money, basically that's what this guy's saying. If you're not making big money, you're a nobody. You're nothing. You're just pocket change. You're a crumb. Oh, I'm not going to interrupt again. I'm genuinely trying not to do so. But this guy, okay, he's a Muslim. I mean, I don't care. I mean, I wouldn't want him to be a Muslim. I would hope that he would come out of it. I would certainly pray for him to leave Islam. Just because he's a Muslim doesn't mean he can't think straight. Oh dear. Please, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's so unnecessary. As Mrs. Smokey Saint alluded to 3 or 4 times redundantly, it's unnecessary. Anyway, sorry. I can't help
It's a justification for an extrajudicial killing.
Yeah.
They can say, you made me do it, even though it's exactly what they wanted to do. And it's exactly what they were going to do anyway.
That's Calvin.
Even if you didn't resist, he was still going to shoot you anyway. Just like the Israelis were still going to do in Gaza, whatever what they're doing now, they were going to do that anyway. No, I told you before, you need to disengage. Don't be provoked. Disengage. You need to disconnect.
Yes, it's so unnecessary.
You need to focus yourself on building community, building community sovereignty, local sufficiency zones. Because what's coming is coming either way. And I've told you this many, many times. Your government is now nothing but a colonial enforcer for the national owners and controllers of global financialized capital. Your government are mercenaries. You need to understand yourselves over there in America as an occupied country and act accordingly, meaning build autonomous communities. as much as you can, build autonomous communities and try to build bridges, again, I'll say it, and connections with people who share your beliefs, who share your so-called race, your so-called ethnicity, your economic circumstances, and so on, people in the global South. You know, you need to connect with the global majority that you're a part of. And that by being a part of that global majority, it makes you a minority in America. But you need to identify with that majority as a member of that majority. Not just identify, but actually reach out, actually build relationships, connect.
By the way, I should tell you, Tim Matthews, I'm sick of your disgusting comments in the side chat. It really is quite childish. I would wonder if you are an adult. I think somebody, I don't know if I've got any moderators. Someone did deal with it earlier. I've timed him out for, oh, how long did I time him out for? 30 minutes. Yeah, what a rat. What's the point of just being disgusted? Nobody cares what you want to
Start independently providing for your community, yourselves, through your own supply chains with Global South providers. I said this before. In my opinion, the African American community in America and other communities, other so-called minority communities like the Hispanic community, so-called the so-called Latino community, you need to come up with frameworks for recognition as diaspora communities of the BRICS countries. You understand? You need to try to propose some kind of mechanisms for how BRICS can actually recognize, can actually work with the populations of the countries in BRICS, but who live in the diaspora. That's how you need to identify yourselves and organize yourselves. Forget about identifying as an American. America doesn't see you that way. That's a one-sided relationship. It's like you put on a jersey, you know, you put on the jersey of some sports team, and you think that that makes you a part of the team. It doesn't. That doesn't make you a part of the team. Well, that's your so-called citizenship. That's what your citizenship is. It's just a jersey that you buy at the gift shop. It doesn't entitle you to play the game. You don't get to play on the field. You know, you need to realize that not everyone in the world is as sick as the society that you are living in. You need to understand this. No, see, in that cult of a country that you live in, they tell you that it's no better anywhere else.
Oh.
When actually it's better almost everywhere else. Not everyone is as insane and as monstrous as your government. Not everyone is as predatory and as psychopathic and as human hating as your elites. No, it's completely abnormal. And yes, there is international law. Your rights are being violated under international law in America every single day. Your whole life over there is abuse. Your whole life over there is psychological abuse, economic abuse, spiritual abuse, intellectual abuse. And you ought to be supporting the invocation of Article 6. You ought to be supporting that, to kick America out of the United Nations so that the United Nations could actually finally be under the control of the rest of the planet, of the same people on the planet, instead of under the control of the United States. Then the United Nations, inshallah, could actually hold America accountable for all of its crimes all around the world, and its crimes against you. That's why I'm saying you need to start building communities that are autonomous outposts of the global South, just located in America. You understand what I'm saying? Consider yourselves as part of the global community. Act like it. Learn from them. Work with them. Think about your human rights and your civil rights in terms of the global standards and the global norms under international law, not under your so-called constitution that isn't even worth the paper it's printed on.
Yeah.
It was written by people who didn't even believe a word that they wrote, and the people today who swear to uphold the Constitution, when they take office, they don't believe a word of it either. But there are people around the world, there are countries around the world who genuinely, sincerely believe in law, who believe in human rights, who believe in civil rights, who believe in justice. And you need to connect yourself with them. You need to align yourself with them. You need to identify with them, join them, collaborate and coordinate with them. Why in 2025, if you're walking around here calling yourself an American, you look like someone on the deck of the Titanic making fun of the people in the life rafts because their boats are so much smaller. You understand how ridiculous that is? Yeah. Yes, and while we're on the subject, you remember how the Titanic, when it was sinking, how it turned completely vertical and then it split in half, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's how you can understand your right and your left in America. The Democrats and the Republicans are just the two broken sides of the Titanic, and they're both going down. Neither one of them is going to save you. Neither one of them is going to save you. They're both sinking. So get you a life raft. You need to get on one of those little dinghies and save yourself. Because when you have these people literally in your face calling you nothing, you best believe they're not going to help you. They're not going to help you at all. They're not going to protect you. They're not going to save you. They're already calling you nothing just so that they can get busy drowning you, and no one will complain about it. No one will raise any fuss about drowning you. I'm telling you, you need to understand what's happening. Don't misunderstand what's happening. There's no fight here. You can't fight against the fact that the ship is sinking. That's not a fight situation. That's a survive situation. That's an escape situation. There's no fight to be had in this scenario. And I'm not telling you to flee the country, even though that's what a lot of you are doing. There's a lot of Americans. We're seeing a lot of that recently. They're already doing it. More and more Americans are seeking refuge in the global South. They're coming here for asylum, but not everyone is able to do that. So you need to flee your country even while you're in it. You understand me? Carve out your own places there. Carve out your own communities. Like I said, sufficiency zones. You can get out of there even while you're still there. I'm not talking about
something else has just occurred to me. Isaac, if you're listening, I hope you are. Are you going to come over here with your cat's YouTube channel? Nova Marie or something? Yeah, do you know why? I mean, this is something, I mean, it probably would have occurred to me before. The only reason they're attacking you, Isaac, the Free Gracers, is essentially as a warning to the other Free Gracers in their disgusting side chat. Oh yeah, if you go again, if you oppose Free Grace, this is what you get. Tony came very close to losing his salvation. I was thinking Jack Smack was going to do a video on him, cast him out. Yeah, Tony Cato is a coward, really. But yeah, that's one of the reasons apart from the fact that the Free Grace channel are just disgusting, really. So is Kevin's biblical discussions. I mean, I heard Kevin, well, not crying literally. He got kicked out of that Free Grace channel. And he went whinging to Smokey. So did Tucker. I've got a screenshot of his comment. Oh, Smokey, let us make bygones be bygones. And let us come together against Free Grace. And yet Tucker has been supporting Free Grace, attacking Smokey, slagging him off and saying all sorts of shit. Now he wants us to be friends with Smokey. What for? Why? I'm not his enemy. I don't hate the guy. He attacks personality, your intellect. You know, if you disagree with him, you're a moron, really. That's what he's done with Isaac. He's doing the same thing, just differently.
Solidarity as a slogan. Most people just use it as a slogan, but I'm talking about practical reality, real solidarity, economic solidarity. Because if you can't escape the country itself, you can't escape the system as much as you can. Escape the system together and try to connect with sane people outside your country and outside your system. You can't fight what's happening because it's going to happen one way or the other. And the way things are playing out, you can't blame one side or the other side. You can't blame one individual or another individual. You can't say it's because of Trump. You can't say it's because of, I don't know, Elon Musk or any particular individual, any particular politician, or any particular party. It's happening because it's an inevitability and it must happen. There is nothing that you can do about it. You can't fight it. You can't reverse it. The only thing you can do is prepare yourself for impact.
Well, there you go. Okay, that's the end of that. The link's in there. There's 2 red dots next to it. Please feel free to click on it. Nobody else needs to know whether you watched it or you didn't. You know, that absolutely is up to you. I'm going to go to my channel. I'm going to show you something. Most of the videos that I've been watching lately. Yeah, I'll just go to my channel this way. Sick of these advertisements on YouTube. I hate it. I'm going to go to my playlist. Yeah, get over, get away, you fucking rat. Playlists. Right, I don't expect any of you to be interested. See this playlist here? Stuff I am watching or have watched. They're not in chronological order. I've tried to get it that way. I don't know why I can't do it. Oh, another advert. F on with the advert.
So the legendary Hollywood actor Robert De Niro gave us.
Yeah, and there's a list. I don't know how it's going to show up for you. Eugenics in the USA. I don't remember watching that. Yeah, actually, that might be interesting. Because eugenics actually started, now that it's reminded me, in the USA, I think. It may have started, it may have been done earlier. I suppose it depends on what you mean by eugenics. Basically, it means destroying a whole racial genetic thingy. I can't remember the exact definition. The eugenics crusade. It's where Hitler got his idea. He was copying the American model of eugenics. Did you know that? Did you know? It's okay to be disingenuous, you know. So, anyway, I don't know whether I'm going to. I don't want to get a copyright thingy, that's all. Robert De Niro, yeah, Hollywood are getting, because they know they're going to be losing their jobs soon. They still want to maintain their so-called fame. Yeah, right. Eugenics in the USA, let's have a look. Obviously, I watched it. I can't remember. PBS, hold on. American eugenics in the USA. Oh. Are you shocked that there's such a thing as a eugenics program in the USA? Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood, 53 million approximately. I haven't checked lately. The last time I looked, it was 53 million abortions in the USA. I don't know how many have occurred in England, the United Kingdom. Perhaps you may have more chance of finding out from the USA. If that makes sense. Exactly.
On August 18, 1934, 20-year-old Ann Cooper Hewitt, heiress to one of the largest fortunes in the United States, was admitted to a San Francisco hospital for an emergency appendectomy. She later learned the surgeons not only had removed her appendix, but also a length of her fallopian tubes. rendering her incapable of ever becoming pregnant. The story of the sterilized heiress hit the papers just after the new year in 1936, when Anne filed a $500,000 damage claim against the surgeons and her own mother for sterilizing her without her knowledge or consent.
I'm sure.
Anne's mother denied any wrongdoing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She'd done what she'd done for
Oh, yeah.
society's sake, she insisted, because her daughter was feeble-minded.
Yeah, I just want to make a small point here. The Jesuit or Roman Catholic attitude to accusations and all that kind of thing, a little bit like Tony Cato. I'm not saying he's a Jesuit. Their attitude is, listen carefully, deny everything, admit to nothing, and make counter accusations, which is basically what Tony Cato did. It's so unnecessary, Tony. You fool. You're stupid enough to think that I'm stupid, and I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. I'm definitely not stupid, though, unlike Bill and Ben and Isaac, although I do have a lot of compassion for him. I really do. I mean, how can I prove that without saying that? Yeah. Well, anyway, here we go. Let's listen to. I'll put the link to this in there anyway. Tim Matthews, if you make another toxic comment, I'm going to ban you permanently. And here's a link to that video. Sure, you can find it if you did a YouTube search. Eugenics in USA, something like that. Another moderator handled this. Right, okay. I'm just going to check. Yeah, I don't like to ban people, but when they're as toxic as Tim Matthews, I'm definitely going to do it. In fact, should have just checked the audio before we carry on with it. Yeah, they'll take all your bits out without you knowing, and if you don't find out because you're too stupid or whatever, they're not going to tell you, of course. Let's just check the audio. I do apologise, I'm not trying to waste anybody's time. America. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Smokey and why does it do just what I thought? Yeah. Right. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. Oh, I didn't want to use that word. Excuse me.
It was the sort of bizarre high society scandal that would have captured the national imagination under any circumstances. But that one word, feeble-minded, struck a familiar chord for Americans and linked Anne's plight to a decades-old campaign to control human reproduction, known as eugenics.
Yeah,
what is the bearing of the laws of heredity upon human affairs? Eugenics provides the answer.
Eugenics was proposed as the scientific solution for social problems. It was a combination of hope and aspiration on one side, and on the other side, it was about fear.
Bear in mind, and I'm not kidding, I followed this through before, years ago. Hitler got all this solution stuff basically from the USA. I'm not joking about that. I don't find it funny. I really don't. I don't find it funny. I mean, I do take the mick now and again. I do take the PISS out of Isaac a bit. I shouldn't do. Actually, I know I shouldn't, and I don't think I'm going to do it again. I mean, what do I say? Yeah, love you, Isaac. I just can't prove it. It's not possible.
In some cases about hate.
They are identified early, categorized, feeble-minded, imbecile, idiot.
It would have been better by far if they had never been born.
Why?
People tend to think that eugenics was a doctrine that originated with the Nazis, that it was grounded in wild claims that were far outside the scientific mainstream. Both of those impressions are fundamentally not true.
It was almost a mania that sort of swept through the country, and there was that kind of naive, optimistic vision of eugenics, like, hey, let's all get together and make better people.
The eugenics movement was about having healthy children.
Well, nobody could object to someone having healthy children. Unhealthy children, ones that are born with MS and other things, I have compassion on them. I mean, they are loved by their parents for the most part. I saw this young fella, I can't think how old he was, I couldn't gauge it. He was still going to some school or other, so he must have been 14 or 15 at the very least. And oh my God, my heart nearly broke. I'm not kidding. Seeing that, the amount of love that his mother had for him and the way that she solved a problem that he was having. He was having a bad day. He didn't want to go to school. And the way his mother talked to him, spoke to him, beautiful. And his day was better just because, okay, it might sound weak to you, I don't care. His day was improved just by his mother saying, oh, it's going to be okay, you're going to have a good day. And I'm going to get you a bag of your favourite sweets. And we're going to have a barbecue tonight. And it's no big deal. I mean, what's the difference between a barbecue and cooking something in your flat? Not a great deal. But it made his day. It's why, I mean, don't be offended now. This is why I feel sorry for you. I know you've got issues. I know you like certain medicaments in your little pipe. I've met people who used cannabis as a Christian, as a brother. And I still value and valued them as a brother in Christ, even though they were doing naughty things now and again. I understood. I comprehended it. I didn't agree with it. I didn't encourage him in doing that. I have to admit, though, I used to like a bit of a, not a bowl, but like, I wouldn't have had a real problem rolling one. How long ago now? Early 1980s. Yeah, I liked a bit of black. Cannabis. Rocky. I don't know what you call it now. Bush. Bit of cowie. Used to call it cowie because it used to look black and like cow poop. Sensi or whatever you call it. Anyway, yeah, I do. And that's the problem, Isaac. If you admit to things like that, they're going to use it on you. It's none of anybody else's business. It really isn't. I mean, sick of mentioning this. Yeah, I take the mickey, I take the piss a little bit with Isaac. He's sort of getting things wrong and right at the same time. He's making metaphysical claims about something he shouldn't be trying to do. In my view, in my opinion. And, you know, I can't do anything about that. I certainly don't expect Tony Cato to be able to do anything. I mean, if Isaac's got somebody at least decent to talk to, basic decent, with a bit of patience, then yeah, you know, great. I don't respect Tony. I do acknowledge his patience, if you can call it that. I might have to modify that description later. Unbelievable. I think he is patronizing, though. Yeah. And I understand why Isaac is going against free grace, because they're making these claims about not being convicted of sin. Hopefully that's because of the video I played of Bill, Tom, Centurion, the warrior, and dude, we're not convicted of sin. Only the unbelievers are convicted of sin. Right. Okay.
About having a stronger society. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to look at the underbelly of what was implemented in the name of eugenics.
Not at the expense of lobotomizing people, young people. Okay, somebody might be feeble-minded. That doesn't make them an enemy. It just means they're feeble-minded. That's all. Nothing else. They used to have in America, I could be wrong, like these vans that go around lobotomizing. And some people over there would lobotomize their own children. Why? You want to know why America makes me want to puke, and England isn't that much better. You actually want to know why America makes me want to puke, to vomit, why I don't want anything to do with it. I don't hate all Americans. That would be silly of me to say, wouldn't it? Anyway, here we go.
To see what was so problematic about it.
At Liberty Mutual, we believe progress happens when people feel secure. That's why we exist, to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Liberty Mutual Insurance is a proud sponsor of American Experience.
Oh yeah, American Experience. Oh. Right. England, obviously. London.
In the fall of 1902, an American biologist named Charles Benedict Davenport arrived in London on a sort of pilgrimage. He was 36, Harvard educated, and like many biologists of his generation, absorbed with the study of evolution.
Oh.
He'd been traveling in Europe with his wife, collecting seashells for research on species variation. But this was to be the highlight of the trip. A meeting with the world-renowned gentleman scientist, Sir Francis Galton.
I've heard that name somewhere.
A pioneering statistician, Galton had lived his 80 years by a single motto: whenever you can, count. His obsession with measurements and patterns had led him to create the world's first weather maps, establish fingerprinting as a means of identification, and set data-backed parameters for the perfect cup of tea. Charles Davenport had come to discuss another matter: Galton's work on heredity.
Francis Galton was a great quantifier. He liked to quantify height, hair color, what is the chest size of an average man, what is the thigh length of an average man. Even things like...
That sounds like what Hitler's crew were doing with the little calipers, measuring all sorts of bits. Yeah. Skull shape, size, whatever. Yeah. Transported to Germany by the Americans and whatever. Yes. Eugenics works for clowns. Because Smokey did make a claim about Isaac, didn't he? He said, it would be better if you'd never been born, if you'd never been a sperm. Yeah, you dirty bastard. I would never wish that on Isaac. Sorry, I keep mentioning. He's really on my heart, and yeah, he really is on my heart. Sorry, I mean, it's just true. Trouble is, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, I can pray for him, of course I do. He's on my heart. God knows who's on my heart. You can believe it or not. Well, prove that that's true without saying that it's true. How? Why would I lie about it? I mean, that's one thing I could say.
Intelligence.
Galton had a theory that talent, as he called it, what we would call intelligence, seemed to run in families. And so it quickly occurred to him, if we can get people with high talent to mate with each other,
Galton,
prevent people with low talent from mating with each other, we will, within a few generations, create this race of supermen.
Oh, yeah.
Francis Galton was borrowing ideas and kind of riffing off of the work of his half-cousin, Charles Darwin.
Darwin believed that evolution was this natural process that...
Didn't the Spartans do that kind of thing? If a Spartan woman gave birth, and they did quite regularly, surprisingly, and that baby was deformed, and they were quite brutal about it. If a Spartan woman gave birth to a malformed baby, that poor baby would be just thrown over a cliff. Are they doing any different today? That practice is from thousands of years ago. And yeah, it's brutal. I don't agree with it, of course. Well, it's not an old idea, is it, really? I mean, they wouldn't call it eugenics. They'd just call it... Well, it is a eugenics, isn't it? Keeping their Spartan tribe pure, as far as they were concerned. Yeah. Well...
was inevitably leading towards what they call the survival of the fittest.
Oh, yeah.
Galton really turns that idea on its head and says, natural selection isn't working very well.
Oh.
We need to do a form of selection.
Oh.
We need to intervene.
Yeah.
To name the effort, Galton had coined the term eugenics, a hybrid derived from two Greek words, meaning well and born. Charles Davenport believed, as Galton did, that selective breeding could transform the human race. What was needed was a scientific understanding of how heredity actually worked. And over dinner at Galton's home, Davenport declared his intention to get to the bottom of it.
Davenport said, I'm going to create a new kind of institution, a station for experimental evolution. Not Darwinian natural selection that you just go out and observe, but can we figure out
how inheritance works? Can we do experiments and find the patterns of heredity?
When Davenport sailed for home in December 1902, he carried with him not only a letter of recommendation signed by Galton, but also, he later wrote, a renewed courage for the study of evolution.
Davenport and Galton really did imagine that the idea of improving human heredity was of almost religious significance, of profound moral importance. They also believed they were qualified to breed a better race because they believed that they were the best and the brightest.
Scarcely more than a year later, with funding from the Carnegie Institution, Davenport opened his research station on the north shore of Long Island at Cold Spring Harbor. Situated on 10 acres along Oyster Bay, the place had been purpose-built for the breeding and analyzing of plants and animals, complete with sprawling garden plots, an aviary, and a half-dozen tidy enclosures housing chickens, goats, and sheep. By mating organisms with unusual characteristics, a tailless Manx cat or a rooster with a black comb, and then studying their offspring generation after generation, Davenport hoped to unlock the mystery of evolution.
Davenport wasn't yet thinking much about humans. He was just absorbing all these different theories of heredity and trying to figure out which ones applied when and under what conditions.
After scores of experiments, one theory seemed to stand out from the rest. The recently discovered work of an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel, who'd spent a decade in the mid-19th century experimenting with peas.
Mendel learned that there was a pattern to how pea plants pass down certain traits. And you could come up with certain ratios to predict how likely it was that a pea plant would look one way or another.
Davenport took that and ran with it. He goes about breeding all kinds of animals looking for the Mendelian ratio. And in trait after trait, he seems to find the Mendelian ratio.
Suddenly, they're beginning to see a mathematical, scientific explanation for things that had been merely conjectural before.
It's becoming obvious that, in fact, there are these things called genes. These units are being transmitted from parents to their offspring, and they're giving rise to physical traits.
By 1906, the work at Cold Spring Harbor had caught the attention of the press and established Charles Davenport as a rising star in the new science of genetics. Thanks to Mendel's laws of heredity, Davenport told one reporter, agricultural breeders could now precisely select for desirable traits, to develop a strain of protein-rich wheat or chicken that laid more eggs. The same methods would one day lead, he predicted, to a rapid and thoroughgoing improvement of the human race.
Davenport was tantalized by the possibility that you could take charge of human evolution. And then along comes Mendelian genetics, which seems to offer a very powerful tool. So extrapolating from the work that the breeders were doing in animals to the breeding of better human beings was a natural step.
In 1909, Davenport informed his funder, the Carnegie Institution, that he'd shifted his focus from the breeding of cats and roosters to an investigation of human traits. Having already found the Mendelian ratio in early studies of eye color and hair color, and convinced he was on the right track, he now began to collect data on a wide range of other human characteristics. He sent out a family history questionnaire to hundreds of individuals and solicited prisons, hospitals, and educational institutions for their records.
You can't really do breeding experiments with human beings. Aside from the ethics, you just can't live long enough to see generations and generations. So it was Davenport's genius to realize if he could collect family pedigrees, he could trace family inheritances and try to prove that evolution works for human beings the way it works for animals.
Davenport's plan was to analyze the pedigree charts for Mendelian patterns and to identify the desirable traits human beings might encourage through careful breeding, and the undesirable ones they could breed out.
Or kill them.
Wouldn't it be a better world if we could wipe out poverty? Wouldn't it be a better world if we didn't have criminals? Wouldn't it be a better world if everyone behaved themselves? And if the reason we have poverty and crime is something that's determined by our genes, if we can change that and make it so that the people who have those bad traits don't pass them down, wouldn't that be a better world?
Well, you'd end up with robots. What rancid thinking that is.
Among Americans of Charles Davenport's class and generation, there was perhaps no word that had more currency at the turn of the century than improvement. They had come of age in the midst of a revolution, a seismic shift that had made the United States the most prosperous and powerful nation on earth, and in the eyes of many, had simultaneously plunged it into chaos.
It's the beginning of the 20th century. We have rampant urbanization, rampant industrialization, rampant immigration. The old order is passing, and wherever you look, society seems to be deteriorating.
More and more farms were giving way to factories, and the cities were overrun with newcomers, many from the countryside, many hundreds of thousands more from abroad.
There was impure water, and the schools were awful, and the disease was rampant, and immigrants were pouring in.
People were apprehensive about rapid change, about the kinds of people you saw on the streets. Slums, crime, alcoholism, prostitution. Native white Protestants felt that they were losing control of American society.
Determined not only to meet the new challenges, but to master them, a veritable army of educated middle and upper middle class Americans had launched a crusade to remake society.
It's the beginning of the 20th century. We have rampant urbanization, rampant industrialization, rampant immigration. The old order is passing, and wherever you look, society seems to be deteriorating.
More and more farms were giving way to factories, and the cities were overrun with newcomers, many from the countryside, many hundreds of thousands more from abroad.
There was impure water, and the schools were awful, and the disease was rampant, and immigrants were pouring in.
People were apprehensive about rapid change, about the kinds of people you saw on the streets. Slums, crime, alcoholism, prostitution. Native white Protestants felt that they were losing control of American society.
Determined not only to meet the new challenges, but to master them, a veritable army of educated middle and upper middle class Americans had launched a crusade to remake society, to eliminate corruption, stamp out disease and vice, assimilate the immigrant, and uplift the poor, all in the name of progress.
The world had never seen invention as powerful and remarkable and as influential as the last 3 decades of the 19th century. This fueled an already existing American optimism about what can be improved. And it directed it into a particular track, which was scientific improvement.
There was a great belief in science. There was a great belief in government, in bureaucracy, as a tool for solving social problems. And also a belief in collectivism, that the population needs to work together to improve society.
The progressive movement said, we can use state power and expert advice and knowledge to solve things like poverty, to solve things like alcoholism. So that was an incredibly hopeful and optimistic idea. Eugenics was part of that.
When the letter from Charles Davenport arrived in 1909 at New Jersey's Vineland Training School for the Feeble-Minded, the staff hadn't known quite what to make of it. A mere 2-line note requesting hereditary information. One of hundreds Davenport had sent.
Davenport investigated any and all traits. Eye color, weight, mood, habit, temperament, diseases, anything. And then he finds this psychologist in New Jersey, and he begins to zero in on low intelligence, something known as feeble-mindedness.
Psychologist Henry Goddard, Vineland's director of research, had no family histories to share. But what he lacked in data, he more than made up for with enthusiasm. Not only was Goddard interested in the new science of heredity, he asked Davenport to guide him in making his own study of feeble-mindedness.
Like lots of people who are working in institutions, doctors or social workers, Henry Goddard was interested in identifying the kinds of conditions that were passed down in heredity and preventing them.
Henry Goddard was 42 and a one-time teacher in Quaker schools. It was in part an interest in education that had brought him to Vineland in 1906. He'd spent the 3 years since trying to parse the many varieties of feeble-mindedness, an all too common mental deficiency associated with antisocial behavior. Some of Vineland's 300 inmates were violent or deranged, others unruly, still others merely slow. Hoping to improve their individual care and training, Goddard had pioneered the use of an intelligence test, which purported to measure a person's mental abilities in relation to that of so-called normal people of the same age. The scores enabled him to sort his charges into categories. To the existing classifications of idiot and imbecile, which long had been used to describe debilitating mental impairment, Goddard had added a third, a higher functioning group he called morons.
That was actually a diagnostic term and not just an insult. Henry Goddard argued the high-grade moron is high-functioning enough to act normal, but they're kind of stuck in this evolutionary phase, and they don't emerge as true adults. What's missing is moral judgment. So Goddard constructs that term moron, and mental deficiency and immorality become basically interchangeable.
Now, with Davenport's tutoring, Goddard began to survey the family histories of 35 of his students at Vineland. What he found made him an instant believer in eugenics. Not only did morons seem clearly to pass on their feeble-mindedness to their offspring, their family trees often were rife with alcoholics, prostitutes, criminals, and paupers. As Goddard put it to the New Jersey State Conference of Charities and Corrections in 1910, feeble-mindedness is at the root of probably 2/3 of the problems that you have before you. The cause was defective ancestry.
Oh, here we go.
Henry Goddard puts forward this idea that if you got rid of feeble-mindedness, you would get rid of all of these problems, or at least greatly reduce them. And we love explanations like that. It's so simple. Oh, it's just feeble-mindedness. So let's, that's the fix.
Goddard reasoned that if the test he devised to better care for the feeble-minded instead were used to identify them, the contagion could be halted, and future generations spared the scourges of mental deficiency.
Typical American rat.
Henry Goddard said, it takes an expert to identify the true menace of feeble-mindedness. So someone you're sitting next to at a restaurant or in a theater could look perfectly normal to you. And it only takes one feeble-minded person marrying another one, even someone who's not feeble-minded, to create generations of feeble-mindedness. What it did is up the stakes of feeble-mindedness by claiming that it was a hidden menace that was more difficult to pinpoint than people might think.
By early 1910, Charles Davenport was convinced that certain human traits were passed down in a predictable way, and that American society could be dramatically improved if only reproduction were controlled. Anxious to spread the word, he began to lay plans for a new institution dedicated to eugenic research and education.
Move it forward a bit. There's a long video.
In February, in search of
vision looking towards the future
of the perils of unchecked immigration. Prostitution was likewise an inmate at the colony. By the laws of heredity, the board concluded, Buck was sterilized on October 19th, 1927. Less than a month afterward, she was paroled from the colony. Thanks to Carrie Buck, a jubilant Laughlin declared, eugenical sterilization's experimental period had come to an end. Over the 2 decades that preceded the Carrie Buck case, only about 6,000 sterilizations had been performed nationwide.
Oh, only 6,000.
In the 6 years that followed it, as states across the country rushed to enact sterilization laws, that number would more than double.
If you look back at all the sterilization laws passed, the easiest way to sum up who their targets were is round up the usual suspects. You are generally going to be dealing with poor people, people who are part of a disfavored minority, people who were on private charity or public welfare, people who had disabilities, mental or physical, and people who were generally considered somehow on the margins of society.
I wonder where Hitler got his idea from. Already.
The conceit of eugenics was that scientists understood what traits were associated with health and well-being over the long term. But hereditary science in the early 20th century was still emerging. Eugenics led the public discussion, promoted the science of human heredity in a time when hereditarian scientists were themselves developing their craft. And I think for a period of time, they saw this as a positive development. Society taking interest in the kind of science that they were doing. And then I think by the 20s, there's a problem.
It was the fall of 1926, and geneticist Herman J. Muller, a former Columbia University flyboy, was looking for ways to speed his experiment along. He was still working with flies, though now on his own at the University of Texas in Austin. So far, he'd been using the technique he'd learned in the fly room from Thomas Hunt Morgan. Hunt for naturally arising mutations, then track them across generations. Breed a generation, peer at its members one by one through a jeweler's loop. Repeat. But at this point, Muller had lost patience.
It took an enormous amount of time to generate these mutants. You had to wait until you basically found one. It was a process of discovery. So Mueller began to wonder whether he could actually create mutants de novo from scratch by doing something to the genes.
One night, on a whim, Muller switched on the X-ray machine and began irradiating male fruit flies. Once they'd been exposed, he slid them into glass bottles with a roughly equal number of female flies. Then he waited. When the larvae began to appear on day 5, it was clear the whim had worked.
Mueller, by using the exact right dosage of X-rays, finds that he can make dozens of mutations that would have taken months or years to find. He becomes a mutant maker. He can't do it in a predictable way, but the principle that human gene material was malleable, was changeable, is an idea that Mueller understands and embraces.
If an insect's genes could be altered by a blast of radiation, Mueller realized, human genes one day might be manipulated as well. And heredity would no longer be the prerogative, he said, of an unreachable God playing pranks on us. The idea of controlling human heredity had captivated Mueller since his earliest days in Morgan's lab. He'd been aware of the flaws in so-called eugenic science for nearly as long, and his doubts about the American eugenics movement had been steadily mounting.
Mueller began to think that you couldn't have a eugenics movement without asking questions about equality. What was the criteria for judging a better human being than a worse human being, and thereby sterilizing the worse human being or selectively breeding the better human being? Who would ensure that the eugenics movement was selecting the best features when the best features were dictated by the elites?
Concerns about the eugenics movement had been raised before, but they'd come mainly from lone voices shouting into the wind. Now, increasingly, hereditary scientists began to speak as one.
More and more scientists are realizing that heredity is not something that you can understand simply like Mendel understood his pea plants. That some human traits are really complex, and you can't predict whether they're going to appear or reappear. That some conditions that we think of as hereditary are really about social issues. Nobody really discards the idea that heredity is important, but there is a growing chorus of scientists who are being more careful in the way that they talk about heredity.
Even the father of the intelligence test, Henry Goddard, who had done so much to stoke fears of hereditary feeble-mindedness, disavowed his earlier conclusions. In particular, he regretted having coined the term moron. With proper education, he now believed, such individuals were perfectly capable of managing their own affairs.
Eugenic scientists were doing what they understood to be reliable science, and it turned out that in many cases, their science was mistaken. Science is a process. People make claims, they advance evidence for it, and then others come along who have a more sophisticated understanding of the methodological problems. And they say, hey, prostitution may result from a woman's having no other choice economically. Or alcoholism may arise from all sorts of stresses in one's life. You don't need genetics at all to explain these things.
As the 1920s came to a close and the Great Depression radically rearranged American society, the dogma of the eugenics movement rang ever more hollow.
25% of the country is unemployed. People's life savings have been wiped out by both the stock market crash and the bank failures. The person who's now on the breadline might have been a lawyer who graduated from Harvard. And this was a clear indication that poverty was not biological.
When, in 1932, yet another eugenics Congress convened in New York, most in the scientific community declined to attend.
They hold this conference to propagate the idea of eugenics. All the same guys are there: Madison Grant, Charles Benedict Davenport, Harry Laughlin, espousing the same ideas. Their ideas have not changed in 25 years, and almost nobody comes because among scientists, eugenics is now viewed as the purview of a bunch of old white cranks whom science has passed by.
Improbably, Herman Muller did turn up at the Congress, though only to deliver a scathing 10-minute speech. There is no scientific basis for the conclusion that the socially lower classes have genetically inferior intellectual equipment, he insisted. Certain slum districts of our cities are veritable factories for the production of criminality among those who happen to be born in them. Under these circumstances, it is society, not the individual, which is the real criminal, and which stands to be judged.
The problem of eugenic thinking was an utter ignorance of social causes of social problems, a tendency to over-biologize, to think through the biological lens about everything in society.
Eugenics might yet perfect the human race, Muller told the audience, but only in a society consciously organized for the common good. In July 1933, in Germany, Adolf Hitler came to power and immediately enshrined eugenics in state policy, with a law that mandated the sterilization of men and women suffering from any one of 9 presumably heritable conditions. It had been based on a model law written by Harry Laughlin.
Before Hitler, there was a German eugenics movement, but it did not have a sterilization law. The sterilization law was ultimately enacted with the inspiration of what American states had been doing.
Oh, yeah.
Ist die amerikanische Familie Kallikak. Die Nachkommen des Leutnants Kallikak.
Harry Laughlin is corresponding with German scientists all along and encouraging them. He's proud of the fact that when the Nazis adopt a eugenic sterilization law, it's strongly modeled on his own law.
The United States has the reputation of being on the forefront of scientific endeavor. When Adolf Hitler was in prison, he read Madison Grant's The Passing of the Great Race, wrote Madison Grant a fan letter saying, "This book is my Bible." And when he wrote Mein Kampf, his autobiography, he said, "We Germans must emulate what the Americans are doing."
Oh.
Nazi officials estimated no fewer than 400,000 Germans would be sterilized, roughly 25 times the number sterilized in the United States so far. The more zealous American eugenicists applauded the Nazi law, which applied to all people, whether institutionalized or not. As one Virginia sterilization advocate put it, the Germans are beating us at our own game.
A game, is it?
But for many Americans, the news from Germany was accompanied by an uncomfortable revelation. Many interviewed about the Hitler proposal expressed shock, the Daily News reported. They were surprised to find out that 27 of our 48 American states have laws permitting the performance of sterilization upon the feeble-minded.
The 1930s was the peak of eugenic sterilization. And that was after geneticists, professional scientific geneticists, had largely abandoned the eugenic program.
There's this trend that discredits the doctrine on which eugenic sterilization is based. At the same time, paradoxically, sterilization rates shot up in the United States because of the Depression. It costs money to keep people in homes for the feeble-minded. So if you want to reduce the cost of keeping people, you sterilize them. And that's what happened.
I'd like to know just what sterilization is. So would I. Just how do they do it? Well, I'll tell you.
As public awareness of eugenic sterilization spread, a controversial Hollywood film opened in theaters. A cautionary tale about good intentions gone dangerously wrong.
And you mean they're going to stop me from having children ever? Exactly.
Released in 1934, Tomorrow's Children told the story of 17-year-old Alice Mason, the sole functional member of an otherwise drunken, crippled, feeble-minded family, who was slated for sterilization along with her parents and siblings.
3 generations of unfit are enough.
And saved from the scalpel only by the revelation that she'd been adopted.
Look at me. Can't you see that I'm well and strong? And I'll be a good mother too, Judge. Honest, I will.
Tomorrow's Children raises the question of whether or not you always get it right when you sterilize someone. How much can you really know about someone's background? Without getting into the details of how much do we understand about genetics in 1934, it simply says sometimes people make mistakes with these things, and so maybe we should be more careful.
Tomorrow's Children was still playing on screens across the country when, in 1935, a committee of scientists turned up at Cold Spring Harbor. They'd been sent by the Carnegie Institution, which had sponsored the Eugenics Record Office since 1918 and had long been embarrassed by its political activities. Now Carnegie's board of directors had ordered a review of the work being done there. The visiting committee's report was decidedly unfavorable. From a scientific vantage, they concluded, the thousands of heredity records stored in the famed fireproof vault were useless for the study of human genetics.
They rightly saw that this eugenics fieldwork was largely ridiculous and was not scientific, but they also were troubled by the degree to which clearly Harry Laughlin was acting not as a scientist, but as an evangelist for eugenics. And this was a clear indication that the tide was really turning against eugenics.
For the movement's faithful, the message was plain. If they were going to continue to cull the unfit, they would need a new justification for it. From the moment the case of the sterilized heiress first hit the news, in January 1936, Americans were enthralled by it. First, there was the girl, Ann Cooper Hewitt, a San Francisco socialite who stood to inherit 2/3 of her late father's vast estate, and her shocking claim that her mother had had her sterilized to gain control of that inheritance.
Ann Cooper Hewitt is sent to the hospital for an emergency appendectomy, and she comes out sterilized. And when she discovers it, She is understandably horrified, and she sues both her mother and the two surgeons. She claims that her mother has done it because her father's will stipulates that if Anne should die childless, the inheritance would go to her mother.
Equally intriguing was the claim of the mother, Marion, that her daughter Anne was feeble-minded, a diagnosis based on an intelligence test she'd been given just hours before her sterilization.
Anne says that she's writhing in pain, and then a woman walks in the room, and the woman starts asking her all these questions. What's the longest river in the United States? And how many years is a presidential term? And Anne's reaction is, why are you asking me these asinine questions? What does this have to do with appendicitis? And she doesn't answer most of the questions.
Although her score identified the girl as a high-grade moron, a court-appointed psychiatrist at a preliminary hearing found her to be well-read, fluent in French and Italian, and perfectly normal in every respect.
The Cooper Hewitt sterilization case was one of those cases that people call the trial of the century. Headlines all over the country. And if you weren't paying attention to what sterilization was by then, you would have heard in that story.
Anne Cooper Hewitt is not emblematic of the typical sterilization patient. And for that very reason, she gets a lot more attention.
By eugenic standards, Anne was the very definition of well-born. She was the scion of the successful, white, wealthy, seemingly sound in both body and mind. On what grounds, then, those following the case may well have wondered, could her sterilization possibly be justified? Attorney I.M. Golden, who represented the surgeons named in the suit, wondered much the same, and he decided to solicit the opinion of an expert. In May 1936, he composed a letter to one of California's leading eugenicists, Paul Popenoe, and laid out for him the details of the case. Among them, the reasons Marion Cooper Hewitt had given for wanting her daughter sterilized.
Marion makes 3 charges about her daughter's behavior that she sees as indicative of someone who is mentally defective. The first is that she becomes infatuated with a chauffeur. The second is that she is infatuated with men in uniform. And then finally, that she has plans to run off with a Negro porter on a train. These are not people that probably Marion believed her daughter should be associating with, not somebody she should have children with.
In your opinion, Golden asked Popenoe, was it proper to sterilize her as a matter of medical and scientific procedure? Paul Popenoe long had been a proponent of eugenic sterilization. But the argument that an immoral, oversexed girl would pass on those traits genetically could no longer plausibly be made. So Popenoe offered another rationale, one that had been recently formulated and recommended by the American Eugenics Society. Heredity, Popenoe told Golden, is not particularly the issue in this case. But I suppose we should all answer negatively the question whether a young woman such as you describe would be a desirable mother.
In the 30s, the eugenic rationale for sterilization begins to morph into a kind of more generalized understanding that this person isn't fit to be a parent.
That turns the whole argument about eugenics on its head, because the determining question was not, will she spread her genetic defect, but will she make a desirable mother?
When the trial of the 2 surgeons got underway in San Francisco, Anne's questionable capacity to mother was the centerpiece of the defense. The girl's sexual behavior alone, Golden argued, cast grave doubt on her ability to provide good moral and intellectual training to her offspring. In the end, the argument had little effect on the judge, who, after 6 days of listening to testimony, abruptly called a halt to the proceedings and dismissed the case, on the grounds that sterilization was legal in California. But in the public mind, sterilization had been effectively recast as a preventative measure against inept parenting.
This is not a story that happens in an institution. It's a story about a socialite. Nevertheless, the same themes of needing to sterilize people for their own good come up. Forget about heredity. These people will be unable to take care of their children, so the humane thing to do is not to let them have any.
Eugenics simply becomes part of the machinery of how these state institutions function. Hereditary defect is no longer part of the conversation. And it's simply a question of a state attempting to use all the tools available to limit the number of people who are seen to be a social and economic burden.
By the close of the 1930s, more than 30,000 Americans had been sterilized nationwide.
I think eugenics appeals to some real strong elements in the human psyche. One part of that, the positive part, is that there is a desire among people to perfect things. The negative side is we're also a species that is very prone to tribalism. We're very prone to believe that, our people are the right people and other people are a threat.
For a time, the enemies within American society were eclipsed by those without, and the nation's attention diverted by a conflict that consumed much of the world. Then came the liberation of Buchenwald and Dachau, and the chilling evidence of eugenic policies carried to a monstrous extreme.
By the mid-1940s, the full horror of what happens in Nazi Germany becomes apparent. The movement from sterilization to extermination, the killing of several millions based on this kind of idea of the betterment of human race. And it creates a vast embarrassment for the American eugenics movement.
People were repelled and began to turn away from eugenics. And eugenics became a dirty word.
The Holocaust being tied to a wide range of eugenic practices is a blemish on humans as a species.
America is a dirty word. Because they were doing eugenics in Iraq, or was it Afghanistan? Over 500,000 people dead because they did, or what they call it. Well, I would call it a siege. They stopped food and all that kind of thing going in there. And what's that woman's name? She thinks the death of 500,000 people was worth it. And still doing, Trump was threatening Iran with being bombed into the Stone Age, destroying a complete whole race of people, the Iranians. Wow. Should I be shocked? Nah.
And it undercuts any notion that eugenics was a positive force in American society.
Surgical sterilization was thought to be too slow and too expensive to be used on a mass scale.
After the war, when the Allies put the Nazis on trial at Nuremberg, one of the charges was eugenic sterilization. And the lawyer for the Nazi who was charged said, how can you charge my client with the crime of eugenic sterilization when your own U.S. Supreme Court said this was okay?
By the end of the 1940s, the eugenics movement had faded from the mainstream of American life. But the laws that had been passed in the name of eugenics would remain on the books.
Yeah, and there's been 53 million abortions in the USA up to this point, and I'm sure I could add at least another 2 million to that. Abortion USA, and I know it's going on in England, of course, and the rest of Europe.
For decades, barring some people from entering the country and others from marriage, and subjecting thousands to forced sterilization at the hands of the state. By the time such practices finally came to an end in the 1970s, the total number of sterilized Americans would exceed 60,000.
It didn't stop till the 70s. Wow, I didn't realise that. That might be when they started abortions over there, legitimising it in their puny brains.
And no matter the cost or the casualties, the scientific betterment of humanity would remain an irresistible aspiration, tempting generations to come with the promise of perfection.
We believe in science. We want science to solve social problems. And we want to make ourselves better.
Oh.
I think everybody wants to do that.
Americans already think they're better than everybody else.
There is this idea that remains a kind of hope that if we just get the science right, if only the right people are put in charge, that we can engineer our way to a better world.
Some of the greatest social changes that have ever been accomplished have occurred because people were really willing to imagine impossible things. But the future that American eugenicists imagined was only a future for some.
And so now the debate is, are we going to use technology to try to fulfill Galton's dream, if you will, of taking charge of our own evolution? Now, of course, it was a pipe dream.
Evolution's a lie.
But nevertheless, it is a dream that persists. We have reason to be apprehensive about this. And the test tube bears.
Oh, hold on. I've just realized. Mrs. Smoky Saint. Oh dear. Dearie me. Aren't you a theistic evolutionist? Yes, you are. It's just so unnecessary. Let me read out your shit again. I'm attempting to distance myself from the community as it is unnecessary drama which lends it's awkward to read because the writing is so small. I do apologise. It's not that I don't have decent reading skills, it's just that the writing's a bit small. Let's have a look. I'm attempting to distance myself from the community as it is. As it is unnecessary drama which lends itself to unnecessary and unreasonable drama which unnecessarily complicates one's life. Well, I wouldn't wish to complicate your life, Mrs. Smoky. No, I would never try such a thing. I wouldn't want to make your life complicated or unnecessary. I do wonder how you can be a theistic evolutionist. You have admitted that, you naughty person, you. How can you believe God, say that you believe God's word, and then out the other side of your mouth say you think evolution's true? You knob. Yes, you are that knob. A half-wit. You may even be a moron, and I'm going to be very reluctant to use that word again. It is a word worth looking into. It is invented, I think. Somebody constructed that word from a composition of maybe a couple of other words, maybe even from scripture. Moros. Not sure. One clown did try to prove what moron is or describe it. I can't remember. Graham Gould, you genius, you, along with Kevin's biblical discussions, who was upset when he was kicked out of the Free Grace channel and then went running to Smokey. Oh, Smokey. Same thing as Tucker did. Oh, let us make bygones be bygones. Let us both go against Free Grace, when Tucker apparently has been Free Grace up to that point. I got a screenshot of it, Tucker, don't worry. I have it. I've got it saved somewhere. You holy one, you, along with Jack Smack, who's holy too. He's really, really holy. Oh, why hasn't Isaac come over? Isaac! Anyway, I'm going to end that. I'll just yeah, there's a few other videos. I mean, I've watched most of these. Let's go back again to my play.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Tech Junction. Hope you all are doing well. What if you could turn simple ideas into full short drama series and actually make money from them? With Pippets.
So the legendary Hollywood actor Robert De Niro gave a speech at a First Amendment rally in New York City. And bro, he did not mince words.
Bro. How do you pronounce it? Is it bro? Bro. Or bra. Whatever. Let's stick of this laptop. I've really got to get a new laptop. I could get one. I just don't want to. I mean, which would be the best laptop to use for YouTube live streaming? I don't know. Have a look at this playlist here. Playlist. That one there. Stuff I'm watching or have watched. You might find it interesting. I don't know. Could do. But when I watch a video now, I tag it, label it, or whatever you call it, post it to that playlist, which I've only just created in the last couple of days or so. Let's just pause that there. I've listened to a few of his videos. I tell you what I do like listening to, who I do like listening to. That guy initially at the beginning of this live stream, is tagged on the video, by the way. What's his name now? He's tagged in the title. Let's just
downs I think I've ever seen. And this is now, I feel like these guys have graduated from like standard resistance liberal talk to like flat out leftist shit here. So let's listen and we'll break it down as we go. Here we go.
When I hear Trump say, as he did a few days
Shahid Bolson. I don't follow Islam, by the way. If you don't even bother accusing me of that garbage. Where was it gonna go then? Playlists. Oh no, I was gonna go here. Arthur Conley. I mean, that guy is, I think he's on fire for the truth. There he is, Arthur Conley. I'll just make sure that's still on screen. Yeah. If you're interested, it's up to you. Free Thinking Ministries, even though he's a Molinist, I might get rid. Kevin Thompson, both of these are Kevin Thompson. Beyond the Fundamentals, Grow and Relate. Attic Philosophy. I'm going to listen to some more of his stuff. I haven't been to Columbus Bible Church recently. Oh, Idle Killer hasn't done any live streams. I'm going to get rid of that one. Chris Fisher, very good. Okay, he's open theist. That doesn't mean he's wrong about everything, Bill. You cretin. You half-wit. Ben's a half-wit, though. Definitely. Anyway, yeah, have a look at my playlist. That one I mentioned to you. I think I've only got 2 or 3 playlists. Oh no, I've got a few more than that. Some of them aren't public though, which I will be making them public. Takes a bit of doing to organise all these playlists. Yeah, but there's my main playlist. Community, yeah. What community are you on about? Oh yes. She's distancing herself from the community. At least she's trying to. What's stopping you? Oh no, the community. Oh, here's Tony, the creep. What a nauseating shit. Tempted to delete his comments. Very tempted. Yeah, let all bitterness, what bitterness? I'm not bitter. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger, yeah, I am a tad angry, and clamour. You're always clamouring, Tony, especially when it's to defend yourself. And slander. What slander? I'm not asking what is slander. How have I slandered you? What, by telling the truth? Be kind to one another, except, well, yeah, be kind to one another, except when you're not free grace. Tony is a free gracer, by the way, Isaac. That's my opinion. I don't care whether you agree or not. Doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox, cools any room within 3 minutes, and uses 90...
Yes, it's true. When you engage with the works of non-Muslims, their writings, their books, their articles, what have you, you're basically performing an excavation and a dissection at the same time, maybe even an autopsy. Yes, it's true. When you engage with the works of non-Muslims, their writings, their books, their articles, what have you, you're basically performing an excavation.
Obviously, he has a Muslim bias. I mean, I'm just going to ignore his Islamic Muslim garbage. I'm not interested in that particularly. He does have an opinion worth hearing.
And a dissection at the same time. Maybe even an autopsy, to be honest. You know, like I was saying in the conversation the other day with Sheikh Turabi, you have to approach their work through an extremely critical epistemological lens. It's a lot more work for us to read their stuff. It's a lot more work for us to engage with their material because we have to disentangle all the lies and all the pathologies and all the obfuscation that's always there, always there. It's woven into whatever they say, whatever they're talking about. You cannot engage casually. If you engage casually, it will definitely be detrimental to your understanding. Now, you have to go in, you know, when you're going in, you have to know that you are not dealing with an honest actor. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum they're on. They are not a reliable narrator. This is unavoidable and inevitable. So as a Muslim, you have to know that before you engage. Know that you are reading pathological dishonesty in which there may be selective facts and information that might be useful to you. But overall, they are always selling some sort of a paradigm. They're always selling a paradigm. They're always pushing a worldview. They're always pushing an agenda, a whole set of false premises that they want you to accept, that they want you to endorse. You can never engage any of their material with your guard down, period.
You can't do
You
that
have
with
to understand
anybody.
this about that culture, about that so-called civilization. You have to understand that they are perpetually on the attack, perpetually on the attack.
Well, so are the Muslims.
They're perpetually engaged in a preemptive counterstrike against thinking people to prevent the invalidation of their authority and their control over how they are perceived. You understand? And that's because their authority is invalid. And their control entirely rests upon manipulating perception. In other words, we're talking about a so-called civilization that is profoundly insecure. And rightly so. They're profoundly insecure. And they feel constantly existentially threatened by anyone and by everyone else who has a genuine and an authentic.
Is that Isaac? I think it is. I'm glad he came over. Isaac, yes, Isaac is here. Yeah, I love you to bits, Isaac. I really do. I know it's difficult for you to accept, you know, and it is reasonable for somebody to say, "Oh yeah, show me that you love me," without telling me that you love me. Yeah, I understand that. Of course I do. It's true. I didn't come up the river in a bubble. And I'm disappointed at you, Isaac. Why didn't you turn up with your cat's YouTube channel? How offended will your cat be now? I'm going to play Isaac's song. I mean, it's just so brilliant. Your singing here, Isaac, is just... I love it to bits, me. How many times have I heard this now? I keep going on about it. You've got to do some more in a similar vein. You really do. Where's that cat's YouTube channel of yours? Harumph. Here we go.
Step right up to the internet then. See the modern day prophet who was never sent. Got a camera, a mic, and a giant ego. Naming every single soul everywhere that we go. You call yourself Jack Smack sitting on your throne, claiming that your status is for own and known. You made a little track saying you know my fate, but you're just a little man spinning tales of hate. Free grace on your lips, but your heart is pitch black. Time for reality to smack right back. Big shoes, look at the clown. Building up a kingdom just to watch it crash down. You ain't the judge, you ain't the king. You're just a puppet on a circus string. He screams, selling cheap fire in your digital dreams. Comes into the heavens and he laughs at the sight. Tiny little speck trying to claim the light. Let's open up the books that you claim you're wise, but you're running a circus full of spiritual lies. You think you got the keys to the pearly gates, distributing judgments, a sign in the face. Even Jesus told the mother of the sons of Zebedee, the seats at the right belong to majesty. The son didn't claim what the father holds alone, but Jack smacks packing for the judgment throne. You think you are Christ, the blasphemous shine, when a bankrupt beggar tries to write the divine. Proverbs chapter 6, let's count them out clear. 7 abominations that the Lord holds near. Proud look check, you're looking from above, a line tongue check. You don't speak in love, hands at your blood, you kill them with your breath. A heart making wicked schemes, wishing for death. Feet running swiftly to mischief and spite. A false witness pouring out lies in the night. And the 7th one hits close, sowing discord deep, scattering the flock while the true shepherds weed. You check every box in the name of the Lord while you're playing with the edge of a two-edged sword. Your spirit bankrupt, running on fumes, locked inside the matrix of your webcam rooms. Got a hand lifted up just to help a poor soul, just digging out a ditch for your hellfire goal. You're a comedy act, you're a carnival ride, a hollow paper piece fueled by internet pride. Look at the scale of the cosmos above, you missed the whole point of the covenant love. You're a speck in the wind, you're a drop in the sea, and your theological degree is a parody. Honk, 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 big shoes, look at the clown, building up a kingdom just to watch it crash down. You ain't the judge, you ain't the king, you're just a puppet on a circus string. Honk, honk, red nose lottery scream, selling cheap fire in your digital dreams. God sits in the heavens and he laughs at the sight, a tiny little speck trying to claim the light. Smack down to reality, the curtain has closed, the clown in the mirror is fully exposed. Keep shouting at the screen till your face turns blue, the only one confused in the room is you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're saying yes to. Yeah, nice of you to come over though, Isaac. Thank you. Nova, lol. Where is your cat? Yeah. Should be there somewhere. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna finish. Actually, I'm far into it. I'm only a couple of minutes. But anyway, I'll put the link in there. You can go and watch it.
And an accomplished civilization. And obviously, especially so with regards to the Muslims, obviously, especially so with regards to us. So everything that they produce intellectually, no matter what it is, no matter what field you're talking about, no matter what the subject is, like I say, no matter what side of the political spectrum produces it, you have to understand that its fundamental, if unacknowledged function, is civilizational validation. That's the overarching purpose behind every intellectual endeavor in the West, behind every artistic.
Well, I think that's true of Islam as well. They're very naughty, very sneaky, and it's okay to lie. So I think Tony Cato, well, no, I don't think he should become a Muslim. He's good Muslim material, wanker.
Endeavor and so forth to validate and to justify themselves.
By the way, just because this guy's a Muslim doesn't mean he's dumb or stupid. He's far from it. Oh yeah, this guy is sharp. Okay, he's a Muslim. I'm not a Muslim, right? You know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater though. Isaac's gone. He has gone. He has left us. Where is he? Isaac.
And to invalidate and delegitimize everyone else. You know, it's like a door salesman who's selling some sort of a sandwich machine, right? And he's going door to door and he goes house to house. And at one house, he makes a grilled cheese sandwich to try to demonstrate the device. At another house, he makes a roast beef sandwich. At another one, he makes a tofu burger, what have you. See, because he's not selling you the sandwiches, he's selling you the tools. So don't mix it up. So whether it's a Naomi Klein or a Nick Fuentes, they are selling you the West. That's what they're selling you. Don't be fooled because one is a vegan sandwich and the other one is a ham and cheese. They're selling you the machine. They're selling you the tool. They're selling you the device. And the truth is, they have literally recruited every single individual in their societies for this defensive validation project. That's why you'll always find them so hostile. That's why you'll always find them so aggressive, so hypersensitive, always so easily triggered. Because the foundations of their society, the foundations of their culture are so fragile. They're so fragile that, yes, every interaction for them is an existential conflict. Objectivity and honesty are dangerous for them. It's absolutely dangerous. So they never practice it. They never practice it, and they never learn to practice it. Their society never taught them that. They do something else that they call objectivity and honesty, but it has nothing to do with being honest or being objective. Like, for example, they'll pretend this whole thing about there's two sides to every story. There's two sides to every story that are both equally valid. Obviously, that's not true. But when you say that, it sounds like you're being very fair. It sounds like you're being very balanced, very measured. But that's not what you're doing at all. But when you either do not understand the concept, the actual concept of fairness and balance, or else you are literally threatened by fairness and balance, so then you have to create some sort of a formula, some sort of a format, some sort of a protocol. You know, two sides to every story, both equally valid, which of course you'll only ever use, you'll only invoke that when there is, in fact, only one valid side to the story, and the valid side of the story isn't your side of the story. Then suddenly you want to uphold fairness and balance and get your side of the story in, right? Like both sides have committed violations in the Israel-Gaza conflict and so forth. This kind of nonsense. So you invoke fairness for the purpose of unfairness and for the purpose of injustice. I mean, you can literally go on and on and on with this. It's just absolutely endless the ways that they do this. Because like I said, they are exclusively in the business of validating themselves. They're exclusively in the business of validating themselves and their so-called civilization, which to them, validating their civilization means protecting the myth of their supremacy and the myth of their superiority. They can't feel validated unless everyone else is invalidated, because everyone else is a threat to them, is a threat to their supremacy. This is how they think. You need to know this. They have no real concept of coexistence, respect, tolerance, mutual goodwill, and mutual regard, and so forth. No. We have to be above and supreme above everyone else, and everyone else has to be beneath and inferior and subordinate and bow to our greatness. This is their requirement. We're the center of the universe. Our superiority is evidenced by your subjugation, by your invalidation, by your delegitimization. That's an existential imperative for our self-image. You understand? This is an unfathomable degree of weakness. It's an unfathomable degree of insecurity that's at the core of so-called Western civilization, truly. Everything we do, everything we are, everything we produce is just so amazing and so incredible, and it's just, all of it is just the pinnacle of human evolution and achievement. Honestly, the self-praise and the exaggeration is just embarrassing, and it's so completely transparent. I mean, the overcompensating only draws attention to your mediocrity, and your inadequacy, and your insecurity. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter who it is from their past, from their history, from their society. They will anoint them as the supreme and the superior to anyone and everything else. You know, Bach, Beethoven, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, Mozart, Shakespeare, whoever else. You know, your most talented people, the truth is, your most talented people were not objectively better than other talented people from any other civilization. I'm not saying that you didn't have talented writers, you didn't have talented artists and composers and so forth. Sure you did. But so does everyone else. You understand? But you take that, and so does everyone else, as some kind of an insult to you. It's bizarre. You know? If we do not agree that you are superior in every possible conceivable way, you take that as an insult. We all are supposed to just concede that no music could ever possibly compare to Mozart. Shakespeare is the untouchable greatest of all time in terms of writing. No, of course not. Obviously not. That's absurd. We're not going to deify your talented people. But if we don't, you feel threatened. Why? Because anytime you produce talented people, this is what you do. You peg your whole civilizational validation on those talented people. So if they were just talented people among all the other brilliant and talented people across cultures and all around the world, then that means that your claim of supremacy and your claim of superiority is in doubt. And that absolutely terrifies you. It terrifies you, and then it enrages you. And then the real you comes out. Not the Shakespeare, not the Mozart, but the Viking, the pillager, the colonizer, the savage, the genocider. That real you who wears your Beethovens and your Shakespeares like an Instagram.
Isaac, I don't know whether you noticed, I've made you a moderator, a standard moderator. I'm not sure what... hold on. I didn't notice that comment. For some reason, it's awkward to see the side chat comments in the studio there. Same here, praying hands, all a waste. I'd love to know what you're referring to there. I do apologise, I didn't notice that comment earlier. Isaac, I'm going to make a big proclamation now. Isaac, you are now a moderator on my channel. Yes, a standard moderator. Come back over with your cat's YouTube channel. If you can. I mean, I don't know what time of day it is over there. It's 25 past 11. It must be about 6 o'clock in the morning there or something. Yeah, we need more cats.
Filter. And like I said, this has become so ingrained. It's so deep and it's so pervasive as a civilizational pathology, to where every individual in your society actually operates from this same position of existential insecurity, existential paranoia and loathing. Honestly, to where you need to dismiss and you need to invalidate and you need to denigrate and belittle and demonize everyone else, all to try to assert your supremacy and your superiority and your perfection. I mean, in every exchange, wallahi, in every exchange and every interaction, no matter how insignificant it is, you do this. In so many ways, the hostility and the aggression and the miserable dishonesty is just always present. It is always present. And it's always multi-layered. It's multifaceted. It's quite astonishing, really, subhanAllah. And frankly, it's exhausting. Wallahi, it's exhausting. That's the root of the Western and the American character, main character syndrome, you see? That's the root of it. Because they think that they can only have validity if they are the main character. They need to be the main character. This is a pathology of domination. And of course, then, because you are this way, and because you have treated everyone else according to this way that you are, your paranoia and your existential insecurity just goes off the charts if your supremacy gets questioned. You know, if other civilizations, if other peoples, if other nations whom you have oppressed, if they develop their own confidence and they no longer cater to your civilizational ego, then of course you're afraid that they're going to end up dealing with you the way you've dealt with them. This is where the paranoia comes in. You know that they have stronger foundations than you civilizationally. You know that they have more substance than you civilizationally. You know that they're more developed than you. You know that they're better than you. And you absolutely cannot possibly rival them on a civilizational level. So you think that you're going to become redundant in this world if other nations have confidence. And like I said, you're afraid that you're going to end up getting dominated because you cannot conceive of anyone not being driven by that same madness for power and control like you. So you exist in this constant state of dread. And yes, this literally runs through the whole collective psyche of the West, through the whole culture. It's pervasive, like I said. And yes, it's absolutely exhausting to deal with you. Honestly, it truly is exhausting. This is why, you know, okay, yes, we can engage with your works, but honestly, it's almost never going to be beneficial to engage with them.
Isaac, did you bring your cat's YouTube channel? Come on. I made you a moderator, by the way. I hope you'll make a comment so I can see that you've got the spanner. I can't tell otherwise. Not that it matters. I mean, you know, I don't mind. you having a spanner. Well, you know.
Correctly. You know, we'll look at your material, we'll look at your content, your books and whatnot, you know, in our own spaces. We'll look at all of that in our own spaces. I personally don't see much, if any, use whatsoever in having a dialogue with you. I'm sorry to say. I'm telling you frankly. Because you're not honest actors at the end of the day. You don't come with points and thoughts and questions. You come with tactics, with tricks and techniques, and passive aggressive manipulating and gaslighting and you know, red herrings and deflection and misdirection and obfuscation. This is how you enter a dialogue. It's literally not possible to have a dialogue with you because you do not do dialogue. You do civilizational validation, supremacy defense maneuvers, supremacy maintenance procedures. You're only ever interested in attacking and dismissing and denigrating and mischaracterizing and belittling others. That's all you want to do. And subverting any sort of good faith communication, any sort of good faith dialogue, all in the service of protecting the myth of your superiority and the myth of your supremacy. I mean, I can give you an example. I can give you plenty of examples. Muslims get these examples all the time if they're online. Our comment sections are always littered with your covert and overt aggression and delusions. It truly is. It's really embarrassing, honestly. I mean, you really ought to understand. You ought to try to understand that it's not doing what you think it's doing when you leave those comments. I know in the world of your imagination, you might think that you're dropping the mic with your comments, but you're actually just exposing layer upon layer upon layer of venom, of dysfunction, of intellectual corruption, of brainwashing, of insecurity, cultural stunting, lack of development, and existential panic. So for instance, I got a comment on a recent video where I was talking about the moral framework of Islam versus the absence of a moral framework in the West. And the person in the comment said something like, can women speak out in Islam? Or words to that effect. It's a good example. It's a good example, both because this sort of genre of comment is very common, but also because it contains so many layers of Western dishonesty. I think it's worth it to break it down, break down the tactics and break down the mentality that's at play here. I think it might be helpful for Muslims to break this down. It also might perhaps be helpful to non-Muslims to recognize what they're doing. Because I think many are not even aware of how abnormal their so-called civilization has made them, to be honest. And I don't think that they're necessarily aware of the extent to which they cannot engage honestly or communicate with other people. So, okay, first of all, it's an accusation framed as a question. It pretends to be an honest inquiry. Right. But of course, that's not what it is at all. It's an accusation. You know, the question presumes the answer. And it's supposedly putting me on the spot, you know, like a gotcha moment. Because you've been told that saying that Islam oppresses women is a truism. It's an argument with the most widespread validation in Western society by means of repetition. By means of repetition. It means that you have a baseless bias and you turn it into a truism by endlessly repeating it. Repetition becomes social proof, and social proof is evidence for you. So you imagine that you have just stated to me a fact of Islam's oppression of women, cleverly, you know, posing it in the form of a question, and you've now joined the repetition circle, which gives you authority. You see how it works? Like, okay, you say all of this positive stuff about Islam, Brother Shaheed, but what about the negative?
Yeah, rhetoric. R-H-E-T-O-R-I-C. Yes. He's describing rhetoric.
Proofs that we have invented against Islam. How do you respond to that? You're so arrogant and so deluded that you actually think that the proof that you created through repetition is actual proof, you know, according to anyone's standards who doesn't live in your intellectually inbred cult. It's like something that you've told each other and you've believed. So that's supposed to make it a fact now on that basis. You know, successful and pervasive propaganda becomes true by definition, by just being pervasive. But the pervasiveness makes it true. Ignorance is truth if there's a consensus on it. And you think that intelligent and honest people are actually supposed to treat it as true and treat it as valid because anything you say is automatically authoritative. See, so you're not asking, obviously, you're passive aggressively making an accusation that you think is supposed to be accepted as a proven fact because it's an established feature of your narrative. You know, you're literally trying to refute facts with narrative, and you think that that's intellectually valid, and you think it's supposed to be taken seriously. And then there's just the fact of framing it, that tactic of framing it as a question. It's just a weaselly way of pretending to not be a hostile bigot. You know, oh, it was a genuine question. I just wanted to know. Plausible deniability of your hostile intent. You're not interested in dialogue. You're not interested in learning. You're only interested in repeating your narrative, having your narrative validated. Again, your civilizational validation, self-validation. You just change the word order and you change the punctuation to make an accusation look like an inquiry. But all you wanted to do was to inject your poison into the discourse. But you couldn't even do that in a straightforward manner, you know? What you wanted to do was just insult. But you don't have the guts or the honesty to just insult. So you make the insult as a question. You make it look like a question. And I'm supposed to now be put on the defensive, right? That's the whole point. I'm supposed to be on the defensive. And now I'm supposed to say all sorts of things to assure you that Islam does not lock women in the basement, right? That's how this is supposed to go. It's supposed to now be my responsibility to disprove your baseless insult when your insult has nothing whatsoever to do with my religion or my culture or my people, but everything to do with your hostile, deceitful culture and your people. And you see, all this does is perpetuate your narrative if I engage, because that just hijacks the whole conversation to make it about me disproving your false accusations against us, and not about you reckoning with the factual wrongdoing of your so-called civilization. You see how that works? You see what I mean now? About how you are always, continuously, perpetually, preemptively engaging in civilizational validation, self-validation. And it's very cunning. It's very sneaky. You see, when you lob that accusatory question about women being allowed or not being allowed to speak out in Islam, not only do you divert.
Well, you'll lose your head over there. I mean, it might not be the case in his country, where he originated, where he came from. I don't agree with Islam. I could never, ever become a Muslim. I'd have to lie to myself all day. I could never become a Roman Catholic. I could never become a free gracer. I would have to lie to myself all the time. Not doing it. No, thank you. Anyway, I think I've heard enough of this guy. Yeah, he is a Muslim. You know, you're welcome to go and check out his channel. It's tagged in the title of this live stream. I wonder who started going live there now. Oh yeah, some guy made a comment on my channel. Well, I'll get to that later. I might bother. I might not. Yeah. What other videos have I watched recently? Not these ones, because they're not on the playlist. But have a look at my playlist. Videos. What's it called now? I'm not going to watch all of this. Stuff I'm watching or have watched. I don't agree with everything in that playlist. I have listened to it though. Anyway, I'll end this bit. Let's have a look at what turned up on my... I don't want 2 months of your premium. I'm not paying to not watch adverts. I mean, that's ridiculous. I don't want to watch your adverts. Stop forcing it on me. Stop trying to force it on me. Stuff that. How do I get rid? Not interested. There's a lot of videos I'm not interested in. The European Eyes Wide Shut. Who's doing that? You know, when America goes to war, if you can call it that, all these ex-so-called colonels and Scott Ritter and all these professors and stuff, they all start rolling out, don't they? What's this? Why American soldiers started killing their own officers in Vietnam. Because they're crap soldiers, that's why. Simple. They were more interested in getting the weed than they were in anything else. And it was a genocide over there, basically. Spreading, what do they call it? That orange stuff. I can't remember. I haven't thought about it, but like, you know, Agent Orange, yeah. New York alert. Yeah, that's about it, really. I think I'm just going to make a coffee. I was hoping Isaac would come back. Isaac, how dare you leave? How dare you? Where is your cat? Isaac. Yeah. Okay, he's left me. Everybody's leaving me. No. Oh dear. Let's have another look. They don't want you to know this. Well, when the government don't want you to know something or find out, take my word for it, you will not find out unless they accidentally on purpose leak it. Yeah, I'm not joking. Of course they know how to stop people finding out things. They just fire out a load of garbage about it, so it nebulizes the truth, so you don't actually able to access it, and you're never going to find out the exact truth, as far as the government are concerned anyway, what they have. I mean, all this, what do they call it now recently? Not alien exposure. Oh, what's the word for it? Yeah, they're not going to tell you exactly what they know. They're not going to show you all the film that they've got. Oh, yeah. The bankers, I mean, they spelt it wrong there. It begins with a W. The bankers who funded Hitler. Yes. And they're all American ones, I think. And Rothschild, a British guy. Yeah. Lord Rothschild. Let us have a look.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can do whatever you want.
I'm not.
You can have really relaxed, slow-paced stuff.
Graveyard at that point in the war. German U-boats had already sunk thousands of Allied ships. In the spring of 1943, a man in a tailored suit boarded a German naval escort vessel off the coast of neutral Switzerland, bound for a crossing that should have been impossible. The Atlantic was a graveyard at that point in the war. German U-boats had already sunk thousands of Allied ships. Sailors who fell into the freezing water rarely made it back out. And yet this man traveled without fear, because the U-boats had standing orders not to touch him. He wasn't a diplomat. He wasn't a spy, at least not in any official sense. He was an American banker. And the institution he ran from a modest, unmarked building in Basel, Switzerland, had just finished processing tens of millions of dollars worth of gold for Adolf Hitler's government. His name was Thomas McKittrick. And when the war ended, when the trials were held, when the justice that the world demanded was supposedly delivered, Thomas McKittrick walked away without a scratch. He was made vice president of Chase National Bank. That is the story we're going to tell today. But to understand it fully, we need to go back much further. Because the financial architecture that made the Holocaust possible, that fueled the Wehrmacht's armored columns across Europe, that kept the Luftwaffe's bombers in the air, was not built in Berlin. A significant
Prescott Bush, I'm sure his name will turn up. And perhaps Rothschild. I can't remember some of the other bankers. And that is spelled incorrectly. It's not Bankers. It is Wankers. Yes.
portion of it was built on Wall Street, in the drawing rooms of London, and in the quiet corridors of institutions that still exist today. This is not conspiracy. Every institution, every name, and every transaction in this story is a matter of verified historical record, sitting in declassified documents at the United States National Archives, the minutes of the Nuremberg proceedings, and in the archives of the Bank for International Settlements itself. What makes this story so extraordinary is not that it happened. What makes it extraordinary is who was never held accountable for it. To understand how American and British money ended up fueling the Third Reich, you have to understand what Germany looked like in the early 1920s. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, had crushed Germany under a debt so enormous it defied comprehension. The Allied powers demanded 132 billion gold marks in reparations, a sum equivalent to roughly $31.35 billion at the time. For context, Germany's entire industrial economy had just been decimated by 4 years of total war. The country had no capacity to generate that kind of wealth. And so what followed was a financial catastrophe unlike anything the modern world had seen up to that point. By 1923, Germany's currency had collapsed so completely that workers were being paid twice daily because the value of money was declining by the hour. People pushed wheelbarrows full of banknotes to buy a single loaf of bread. The middle class, which had saved and planned and worked for decades, watched their life savings evaporate in a matter of months. Pensioners who had accumulated modest fortunes found themselves destitute overnight. The social contract in Germany didn't just fray during those years, it disintegrated entirely. And into that vacuum of despair, rage, and humiliation, a failed Austrian painter named Adolf Hitler was beginning to attract followers. Now, here is where the first critical thread in our story appears. The Allied powers, including the United States, began to recognize that a completely destabilized Germany was dangerous not just for Germany, but for all of Europe. Famine, political extremism, and social collapse on the continent were bad for business. And so, in 1924, a plan was devised to stabilize Germany's economy. It was called the Dawes Plan, named after Charles G. Dawes, an American banker and economist who chaired the committee that produced it. The plan restructured Germany's reparations schedule, reorganized the German National Bank, and provided Germany with a critical lifeline in the form of foreign loans. The initial loan was 800 million marks. Half of that was provided by American banks, led by J.P. Morgan and Company. Let's pause on that for a moment. The Wall Street Banking Consortium, led by Morgan, oversaw a massive injection of capital into a shattered nation. And on the surface, this looks like generous, forward-thinking economic policy. It stabilized Germany's currency. It allowed the economy to grow. The years between 1924 and 1929 are sometimes called the golden years of the Weimar Republic. Berlin became a vibrant, dynamic city. Industry recovered, and Germany paid its reparations installments on schedule. By 1929, the plan was revised again under something called the Young Plan, which further restructured the payments and involved yet another round of J.P. Morgan orchestrated Wall Street loans flowing into Germany. Here is what the history books often leave out. The German economy had become almost entirely dependent on American credit. The foreign investment flowing into German industry between 1924 and 1929 amounted to nearly 63 billion gold marks, with 30 billion of that coming from loans. And when the Wall Street crash of 1929 hit and American banks began calling in their loans across the world, the German economy didn't just slow down. It went into free fall. Unemployment in Germany climbed past 30%, banks collapsed, savings evaporated again. The very population that had just barely survived the inflation catastrophe of the early 1920s now faced a second devastating economic collapse. And this time, when they looked for someone to blame, they found a ready-made answer in a political movement that was becoming louder, angrier, and more violent by the month. In other words, the financial architecture that Wall Street built in Germany during the 1920s was the same architecture that, when it collapsed, created the conditions Adolf Hitler needed to rise to power. Whether this was deliberate or simply the reckless behavior of profit-seeking bankers who didn't consider the human consequences is debated, but the result was not in dispute. And then came the direct funding, because the loans of the 1920s were only part of the story. Once Hitler began to emerge as a serious political force, a much smaller group of financiers, both German and foreign, began to make direct decisions about his movement's survival. The first man you need to know is Fritz Thyssen. Thyssen was the heir to one of Germany's most powerful industrial dynasties, the Thyssen steel and coal empire, which dominated the Ruhr Valley. In 1923, he attended a speech by Adolf Hitler and came away deeply impressed. Thyssen was terrified of communism. He had watched the Russian Revolution and concluded that if Germany didn't find a strong nationalist movement to crush the political left, something similar could happen at home. He began donating to Hitler's party.
Thyssen Krupp. Yes.
Almost immediately, starting with 100,000 gold marks, which would be worth roughly $450,000 in today's money, funneled initially through General Erich Ludendorff. Over the following decade, Thyssen would channel the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars into the Nazi movement at a time when it was still a marginal, violent fringe organization trying to survive on pamphlets and beer hall rallies. By 1932, Thyssen's role had become decisive. Together with the financier and banker Hjalmar Schacht, Thyssen organized a letter to German President Paul von Hindenburg, signed by prominent German industrialists, urging Hindenburg to appoint Hitler as chancellor. He also persuaded the Association of German Industrialists to donate 3 million Reichsmarks to the Nazi Party for the election campaign of March 1933. That election came just weeks after Hitler had already been handed power. The donation helped consolidate Nazi control of the Reichstag. Thyssen literally helped engineer the moment Hitler's grip on Germany became irreversible. He later wrote a memoir titled, with unusual candor, I Paid Hitler. After the war, he was fined 15% of his assets by a German denazification tribunal and classified as a lesser offender. He died in Buenos Aires in 1951, but Thyssen was the visible figure. The deeper architecture was built by the man who became the financial wizard of the Third Reich, and whose name appears in every serious account of this era. That man was Hjalmar Schacht. Schacht was arguably the most sophisticated financier in German history, a man who understood the mechanics of money at a level that most politicians and generals simply didn't. He had been president of Germany's Reichsbank, its central bank, during the 1920s. He was the man credited with ending the hyperinflation crisis of 1923. He had international connections. He was trusted and respected in London and New York. And in 1933, after Hitler came to power, Schacht returned to the head of the Reichsbank and became the financial engine of Nazi rearmament. What Schacht did was genuinely remarkable from a purely technical standpoint, even as it was morally catastrophic in its consequences. Germany was bound by the Treaty of Versailles not to rearm. It had no legal mechanism to borrow heavily on international markets to fund a military buildup. So Schacht invented one. He created a system of secret financial instruments called MEFO bills. These were essentially fake promissory notes issued by a shell company that existed for no other purpose than to serve as a legal fiction. The Reichsbank could purchase and rediscount these bills from private banks, which meant that technically it wasn't lending directly to the government, even though that's exactly what was happening. Through this mechanism, Germany financed nearly 12 billion Reichsmarks of rearmament by 1938, which was 120 times the statutory lending limit that Schacht himself had previously helped to enforce. At Nuremberg, when asked about this scheme, Schacht said with extraordinary coldness, and I'm paraphrasing his documented testimony here, it was a subterfuge that enabled the Reichsbank to lend what it legally could not do. He said this as though he was explaining a particularly elegant chess move. And the international banking community, particularly in London and New York, largely looked the other way while he did it, because Schacht was one of them. He traveled freely between Berlin and foreign financial capitals. He met President Franklin Roosevelt at the White House in May of 1933, a meeting arranged through Wall Street connections, after which Germany was granted a $1 billion credit. He was not some shadowy figure operating in darkness. He was a celebrated, decorated, internationally recognized financial genius who was openly deploying that genius in the service of a government that was already, by 1933, stripping Jewish Germans of their rights, burning books, and putting political opponents in concentration camps. Schacht was eventually dismissed by Hitler in 1939, arrested during the war on suspicion of involvement in the 1944 assassination plot against Hitler, and survived in Dachau concentration camp until liberation. At Nuremberg, he was charged with crimes against peace and war crimes. He was acquitted. He spent the rest of his long life as a respected financial consultant, advising governments around the world, including Egypt's Gamal Nasser. He died in Munich in 1970 at the age of 93. He was never meaningfully punished. Now we come to the institution at the center of everything, the institution that processed looted gold, handled currency transactions for the Reichsbank during the war, and whose president was an American banker who traveled freely through Nazi territory. The Bank for International Settlements, or BIS, was created in 1930 to administer German reparations payments following World War I. It was a joint creation of the world's leading central banks, including the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, and major private banks like Morgan. Its founding purpose was to facilitate international monetary cooperation. By the time the war began, that purpose had curdled into something almost unrecognizable. When Germany annexed Austria in 1938, the BIS accepted Austria's looted gold and sent it along to the Reichsbank in Berlin. When Germany absorbed Czechoslovakia, the SS held the directors of the Czech National Bank at gunpoint and demanded their gold reserves. The Czech bankers had just transferred millions to the BIS, believing it was safe there. The BIS forwarded it to Berlin. When the war began in earnest and Germany began occupying country after country across Europe, the BIS continued to function as a neutral financial clearinghouse, processing gold transactions for the Reichsbank, arranging foreign exchange deals, and maintaining the financial lubrication that allowed Nazi Germany to continue trading with neutral countries like Sweden, Switzerland, and Portugal, all while the killing continued. The man presiding over all of this was Thomas McKittrick. Born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1889, educated at Harvard, McKittrick was by every external measure a member of the American financial establishment in good standing. He had worked for the National City Bank in Geneva, served in the United States military during World War I, and built a distinguished banking career in the interwar years. In 1940, he was appointed president of the BIS, a role he held until 1946. His appointment was explicitly described in the documents that survive as being partly attractive because he was an American citizen at a time when the United States was still officially neutral. He gave the institution a veneer of credibility and distance from the Nazi government. In reality, he worked closely with Emil Pohl, the vice president of Germany's Reichsbank and a committed Nazi. On McKittrick's watch, the BIS processed hundreds of millions of dollars worth of gold, much of it looted from conquered nations and from the assets of murdered Jews, including dental gold extracted from concentration camp victims. It carried out foreign exchange transactions for the Reichsbank throughout the war. It recognized Nazi annexations of conquered countries for financial and administrative purposes. McKittrick personally traveled into Nazi-controlled territory on multiple occasions, including the spring of 1943 when he met with Reichsbank officials in Berlin. The return trip through German-controlled waters was made possible because U-boats had standing orders not to attack his vessel. There was an American politician who tried to do something about this. Henry Morgenthau, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, had been tracking the BIS's activities and was horrified by what he found. At the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944, the gathering that designed the post-war international financial system, Morgenthau pushed hard for the BIS to be liquidated entirely. His position was simple. An institution that had processed stolen gold and facilitated Nazi finance had no place in the post-war world. The resolution to dissolve it actually passed at Bretton Woods, and then it was quietly reversed. The BIS's powerful friends, including the British economist John Maynard Keynes, intervened. The institution survived. McKittrick's books were kept secret. A fixed amount of plundered gold was returned in a face-saving gesture, and the rest was never fully accounted for. The BIS still exists today. It is still headquartered in Basel, Switzerland. It is still regarded as one of the most important financial institutions in the world. It still describes itself as the bank for central banks. Thomas McKittrick, when the war ended, moved smoothly into a senior role at Chase National Bank. He couldn't have picked a more fitting employer, because Chase National Bank had its own history with the Third Reich that deserves its own chapter. 6 months before...
I'm just going to reply to a comment via audio to John Kowalski. Obviously, this is 27 minutes ago. Obviously a clown. Mr. Kowalski, you obviously, to me anyway, seem to be a cretin, a clown of the first order. Really, yeah, you want to go, you're obviously from the pod channel, Free Grace much. Yeah, And as such, you can go away. Yeah, there you go.
Before Hitler invaded Poland, Chase Bank wired $25 million, a figure documented in declassified U.S. Treasury reports, in funds connected to Nazi Germany's war preparations. When Germany occupied France in 1940, most American businesses operating there made the reasonable decision to leave. Chase didn't leave. J.P. Morgan didn't leave either. Their Paris branches remained open for the duration of the occupation. They didn't just remain open, they collaborated. The Chase branch in Paris, operating under the authority of a branch chief named Carlos Niederman, worked in what declassified U.S. Treasury documents describe as close collaboration with the German authorities. This included the systematic freezing and seizure of accounts held by Jewish customers. A French government commission investigating these matters found that 5 American banks, Chase Manhattan, J.P. Morgan, Guaranty Trust Company of New York, Bank of the City of New York, and American Express, had all participated in handing over approximately 100 Jewish accounts to the Nazi occupiers through their Paris branches. Niederman himself wrote a letter back to his supervisors in Manhattan in May of 1942, 5 months after the United States had entered the war, describing the bank's relationship with senior German officials as one of very special esteem and noting a rapid expansion of deposits. He was bragging in a letter to New York about how well Chase was doing business with the people America was at war with. After the war, Chase faced no prosecution. No executive was charged. The bank was not broken up, fined, or in any meaningful way held accountable. It continued to grow and eventually became the institution we know today as J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest banks in the world. Then there is the case of Prescott Bush, a name that resonates not just as a historical footnote, but as the beginning of one of the most prominent political dynasties in American history. Prescott Bush was a partner at Brown Brothers Harriman, one of Wall Street's most prestigious investment banks. He was also a founding director of the Union Banking Corporation, a New York investment bank incorporated in 1924. The Union Banking Corporation was, in essence, a financial vehicle for the Thyssen family, those same Thysens whose patriarch Fritz had been an early and direct funder of Adolf Hitler. Through the UBC, the Thyssen family's assets and financial interests were managed and protected in the United States. Brown Brothers Harriman provided crucial banking infrastructure and financing to German industrial interests with Nazi connections. In October of 1942, more than a year after the United States had entered the war, the U.S. government seized the assets of the Union Banking Corporation under the Trading with the Enemy Act. The government's investigation confirmed that the bank's directors, including Prescott Bush, were involved in financial dealings with entities connected to the Nazi government. The documents confirming this have been declassified and reviewed by journalists, including reporters from the Guardian newspaper in 2004. No criminal charges were filed against Prescott Bush. No prosecution followed. He was elected to the United States Senate from Connecticut in 1952. His son, George Herbert Walker Bush, became the 41st President of the United States. His grandson, George Walker Bush, became the 43rd. But perhaps the most strategically consequential form of support the Nazi war machine received from American corporate interests was not financial in the narrow banking sense. It was technological. And for that, we turn to one of the most extraordinary and disturbing corporate arrangements in the history of modern warfare. Standard Oil of New Jersey, the successor entity to Rockefeller's original oil empire, had a deeply intertwined...
Yeah. Standard Oil New Jersey. What about Standard Oil New York? But, what's his name now? Oh, how come I forgot his name? A famous singer, Michael Jackson, was virtually, I could tell he was scared. Standard Oil New York, Sony, why would he be scared to death, basically, of Standard Oil New York? Because I saw him mention Standard Oil New York, and he was shaking in his boots. I felt sorry for Michael Jackson, and he wasn't a nappy snapper. I don't believe he was. I struggle with that one. But anyway, yeah, Standard Oil New Jersey.
Relationship with IG Farben, the German chemical and industrial conglomerate that became one of the most important institutions of the Nazi war economy. IG Farben operated the synthetic rubber and synthetic fuel plants that gave Nazi Germany the capacity to wage mechanized warfare. It also operated Auschwitz III, the industrial slave labor camp attached to the main Auschwitz complex, where prisoners were literally worked to death in the service of German chemical production. IG Farben and Standard Oil had a patent sharing and technology sharing cartel arrangement that predated Hitler's rise to power, but continued to function in ways that directly benefited the Nazi military machine long after the war had begun. The most concrete example of this involves tetraethyl lead, an anti-knock compound used in aviation fuel. Without tetraethyl lead, modern aviation, and therefore modern air warfare, was essentially impossible. In 1924, Standard Oil of New Jersey and General Motors had jointly formed the Ethyl Gasoline Corporation to control the patents for tetraethyl lead and ethyl fluid. Up to 1935, these products were manufactured exclusively in the United States. In 1935, over the official protests of the U.S. State Department, Ethyl Gasoline Corporation transferred the manufacturing know-how and process to Germany for use in Nazi rearmament. A plant was built in Germany, jointly owned by IG Farben, General Motors subsidiaries, and Standard Oil subsidiaries. Then in 1938, just before the outbreak of war, the German Luftwaffe urgently needed 500 tons of tetraethyl lead. Standard Oil's Ethyl Export Corporation arranged the transaction through the Reich's Air Ministry, with financial arrangements made through Brown Brothers Harriman. The collateral was secured in a letter dated September 21st, 1938, just days after the Munich Agreement that gave Hitler the Sudetenland. A captured German document recovered after the war states the matter with stunning directness. The German officials wrote, "Without tetraethyl lead, the present method of warfare would have been impossible. The fact that since the beginning of the war we could produce tetraethyl lead is entirely due to the circumstances that shortly before, the Americans presented us with the production plants, complete with their know-how. That is a German military document confirming that American corporate arrangements made Hitler's Air Force possible. Standard Oil also helped IG Farben develop synthetic rubber technology called Buna. And here, the behavior becomes even more breathtaking. While Standard was helping IG Farben develop Buna capacity in Germany, it was simultaneously keeping the German Buni process secret within the United States, withholding it from American companies like Firestone and US Rubber. It wasn't until June 1940, nearly a year into the war, that those American companies were finally allowed to participate in testing. Standard Oil was, in other words, giving the enemy's industrial base an advantage over its own country's industrial base. After the war, Standard Oil faced a Senate investigation. There were no criminal charges. The company was fined a modest sum for technical violations of antitrust law, which was widely regarded at the time and has been regarded since as a deliberate evasion of the far more serious charge of trading with the enemy. Across the Atlantic, a parallel operation was underway in the quiet financial corridors of the City of London. The Bank of England during the 1930s was led by Montague Norman, its governor from 1920 to 1944. Norman had a famously close relationship with Hjalmar Schacht. The two men were said to be personal friends, and Norman's instinctive sympathy for German financial stabilization colored his approach to the Nazi government in its early years. In January of 1932, Montague Norman met Hitler and Chancellor Franz von Papen to discuss what has been described in various accounts as a secret accord regarding funding flows to the Nazi Party. The precise nature of that meeting remains a subject of historical debate and should be understood as disputed. But what is not in dispute is that the Bank of England, under Norman's leadership, approved the transfer of Czechoslovakia's gold to the Reichsbank in March of 1939, weeks after Hitler had already seized the rest of Czechoslovakia, in violation of every diplomatic assurance he had given at Munich. The British government was formally notified. The transfer proceeded anyway. £6 million sterling in Czech gold, sitting in the BIS, was redirected to Berlin. The matter was raised in Parliament, and Norman defended the transaction as legally required. The gold was never returned. What is striking, when you look at the full picture, is not just the scale of what happened, it's the consistency of the outcome. Almost no one who participated in these arrangements faced meaningful consequences. The pattern repeats itself so many times that it demands explanation. Part of the explanation lies in the ideological context of the era. It is important to be precise about this. Many of the figures involved, on both sides of the Atlantic, were primarily motivated not by sympathy for Nazi racial ideology, but by fear of Soviet communism. To the Wall Street establishment of the 1920s and 30s, Bolshevism was the existential enemy of capitalism. Hitler, whatever his excesses, was at least reliably anti-communist. He had crushed the German labor movement, he had outlawed the Communist Party, he had imprisoned and killed socialist politicians. For a certain type of wealthy conservative investor in London or New York, a strong Germany under Hitler was preferable to a weak Germany that might fall to the radical left. This calculation was wrong in every moral and strategic sense, but it was a calculation that genuinely shaped the behavior of real people with real power. There was also the simple fact of profit. The German economy, once stabilized by foreign loans in the 1920s and then rebuilt under Nazi economic management in the 30s, was a lucrative market. German industry was growing fast. German bonds paid reliably. The patent-sharing arrangements with IG Farben were profitable for Standard Oil. The deposits flooding into Chase's Paris branch under Nazi occupation were growing rapidly. Money has always had a tendency to smooth over moral objections, and the returns are good enough. And the returns were very good. And then, when the war ended, there was the question of what justice would actually look like. The Nuremberg trials were a genuine and important attempt to hold individuals accountable for crimes against humanity. 24 senior Nazi officials were indicted, but the trials were also constrained by political realities. The Allied powers, particularly the United States and Britain, were already looking ahead to the Cold War. Germany needed to be rebuilt quickly as a buffer against Soviet expansion. The Western banking and corporate establishments that had enabled Nazi Germany were also the establishments that would rebuild Germany and finance Western European recovery under the Marshall Plan. Pulling on that thread too hard, prosecuting Schacht or McKittrick or the executives of Chase or Standard Oil would have implicated too many people, too many institutions, too many political allies. Hjalmar Schacht was acquitted at Nuremberg by a tribunal that found his later opposition to Hitler's spending as evidence that he had not been a willing participant in crimes against peace. This was a remarkable reading of a man who had personally invented the financial mechanisms that funded Nazi rearmament, who had served as Hitler's economics minister, and who, by his own documented admission, had used financial subterfuge to circumvent legal limits on government borrowing in service of building a war machine. The Soviet judges at Nuremberg dissented from his acquittal. The Western judges overruled them. Thomas McKittrick became a vice president at Chase National Bank and lived comfortably in New Jersey until his death in 1970 at the age of 80. His New York Times obituary described him as a world financier. It did not mention the Nazi gold. It did not mention the Reichsbank. It did not mention the U-boats. The BIS not only survived, but was eventually formally incorporated into the post-war international financial order. Today, it sits at the center of global banking regulation. Its members include the world's major central banks. It publishes research on monetary policy, financial stability, and international economic governance. It is entirely immune from prosecution under Swiss law. Prescott Bush went to the Senate. His descendants went to the White House. Brown Brothers Harriman continued to be one of Wall Street's most prestigious private banks. Chase National Bank merged and grew and merged again. Standard Oil of New Jersey became Exxon, which later became ExxonMobil, currently one of the largest corporations on earth. Fritz Thyssen died in Argentina having...
Yeah, interesting that this guy leaves out the Vatican. Leaves out the Vatican. I wonder why.
Paid a fine. Hjalmar Schacht died peacefully in Munich. Montague Norman retired from the Bank of England and died in 1950. Emil Pohl, the Reichsbank official who personally coordinated the looted gold transactions through the BIS, was convicted at Nuremberg in a subsidiary trial of financial officials and sentenced to 5 years. He served less than that. There is something important to say about the nature of this history, beyond the particulars of who did what. The financial system that enabled the Third Reich was not a conspiracy in the dramatic secret sense. Most of what happened was hidden in plain sight, conducted through institutions with names and letterheads and annual reports. The men involved were not anonymous. They gave interviews, attended conferences, sat on committees. What protected them was not secrecy, but normalcy, the language of banking and commerce and internet.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Franz von Papen and what I remember as being called culture camp, Hitler could never have got into power. Franz von Papen was a high-level Roman Catholic. Yeah. Well,
national finance has always had the capacity to make morally catastrophic decisions sound like administrative ones. A gold transfer is a gold transfer. A loan is a loan. A patent sharing agreement is a patent sharing agreement. Strip away the language and you have an American oil company giving an enemy air force the technology it needed to drop bombs on Allied soldiers. You have an American bank seizing the accounts of Jewish people in an occupied country and handing them to the occupiers. You have a neutral institution in Switzerland accepting gold stripped from the mouths of concentration camp victims and crediting it to the perpetrators' accounts. The people who made those decisions were never called what they were. They were called bankers. They were called businessmen. And when the shooting stopped, they went back to being just that. What this history demands of us is not simply anger, though anger is an entirely appropriate response. What it demands is a serious reckoning with the question of what accountability actually looks like when the people involved are powerful enough to shape the system of accountability itself. The Nuremberg trials were extraordinary. They established principles of international law that still govern the world, but they were also inevitably incomplete. The architects of the financial machinery that made the killing possible, the American bankers, the corporate executives, the institutional managers on both sides of the Atlantic, they got to write the next chapter themselves. They built the post-war financial order. They wrote the regulations. They sat on the boards. And the full story of what they did during the war was buried in archives for decades, emerging slowly through the work of investigative journalists, academic historians, and the declassification of government files that the institutions involved would have preferred stay sealed. We owe it to the people who died in those camps, the people whose gold was processed through Basel, the people whose bank accounts were handed to the Gestapo by Chase's Paris branch, the people who were worked to death in IG Farben's Auschwitz facility, to remember not just who pulled the triggers, but who paid for the bullets, not just who gave the orders, but who provided the financial oxygen that kept the machine running year after year. The official history of World War II has a clear narrative of good versus evil. And that narrative is true as far as it goes. Now, the Nazi regime was monstrous.
Hold on, the Americans and the British are not innocent here. What about the what do you call it, carpet bombing, Dresden, the concentration camps that were started at the end of World War II for returning German soldiers who were left to starve to death in the Rhine meadows. Yeah, America is just dirt. It's a dirty country. It's a dirty government. I despise it. And this guy here leaves out the Vatican, the Roman Catholic involvement, Pius XII in World War II, because he had a Concordat agreement with Hitler. Yeah. Hypocrite.
Its defeat was necessary and right. But embedded within that true story is a quieter, more uncomfortable truth. That the line between the financing of evil and the financing of civilization ran through the same institutions, the same balance sheets, and the same men. And that when the reckoning came, those men were judged by a standard that was shaped in no small part by the power they still held. The buildings are still there, the banks are still open, and the history is still, for the most part, unread. If you made it this far, I want you to think about what it would look like if financial...
Yeah, go on, piss off. I can't remember the name of this guy. He's all over the place on YouTube. Yeah. Honestly, give the whole story if you're going to give it, or as much of the whole story as you can. Don't leave out one of the biggest organizations, the most evil cult on this earth, really. The Vatican. I'm not kidding. Anyway. America. England are just as disgusting. Anyway, where's that? I'm going to get rid of that. Don't take it personal, Isaac. I'm going to delete that. I don't think I'm going to use... I didn't realise it was a GIF anyway. I think it's a GIF. Oh no, it's a small MP4. Something like that. There, it's gone. Anyway, Isaac's gone. He's deserted me. Nobody's watching at the moment. That's okay. Right, I'm gonna go. Bye. Oh, hold on, unless somebody wants to comment. I don't know, they might come back. Oh, I'll just end it here. Thank you for coming over.